I'm not mistaken, his face is a haddock. Cheer up, pig, don't you cry. The special offer on fish pie.
What,
Hey,
baby?
baby.
Yeah.
Why do you look grumpy?
Because I am grumpy.
Why?
Because I miss someone.
I'm out. Give me 5 minutes.
Hello there. Hello there. Why is my button
The
T?
baguette. Oh, wow, I have only a baguette. No. Where is it? I don't. Where is it? Where is my iconic baguette? It's right there. Exactly. Hello, Mega.
Hello.
That sounded so strange in your
Wow.
accent.
What?
It's Chloe when she's like, "Hello, Mega." It did not sound like that. It sounded like something else. Yeah.
So how are you guys tonight?
Tonight will be the night that I.
I just asked how you were. Yeah.
Well,
should expect that by now.
I've got like a thing over the top of my screen saying Buckles Room Draft, like it's like a tutorial game. This is odd.
Oh wait, my game isn't in English. Wait, I'm coming back. Oh my fuck.
What is that, Lenny? Just waiting for Lynn to actually wake up, you know.
Fair enough.
It's not fair enough. It's supposed to be, God damn it, Lynn.
No, it's fair enough.
No.
With the time difference, fair enough.
Warm apple Mara.
Hello?
I love that.
Now
It's been
it's
a while.
better. Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Have you guys played with Mara Bobara before?
I think so.
Don't think so.
Twice?
I don't think so.
I mean, she hasn't lagged yet.
Person.
She hasn't lagged yet, so I'm very surprised.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
This is crazy.
Wow.
This is the most coherent I have ever heard her, ever.
Really?
I mean, you said a sentence.
I'd get a new PC, so.
She said a sentence, guys. Guys, she said a sentence.
I said it.
It isn't a yeah, bucka, yeah, yeah, yeah. We become friends because I speak
A
Mara.
bit goofy if you ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah, my lag was bad, wasn't it?
It was. Oh, my glasses bounce when I walk.
So we're waiting on Blanc. Is Cielo joining us?
She is joining us. She's just waking up.
Oh, okay, no problem. No problemo.
I haven't put this game in the Goose server yet.
Okay.
Mm.
There is no problem. I don't know if Odyssey will be joining us because every time he clicked on the button to say he's interested, but it doesn't come. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's annoying when he does that.
I don't know.
Ba 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 ba. There's her face. There's her gorgeous face. I haven't seen Lynn's face. I just changed the button from T to V and I was pressing T to talk. Fuck's sake.
Oh, you're on Push to Talk.
I am.
Is it public?
Oh.
It is public.
Private room.
It is Pabaleco.
Okay, I'm not because yeah,
I need to update.
I'm pretty annoyed with that in Valorant. You know, So
Oh no, I laugh too
I
much,
don't
so
touch it here.
I have to be on push to speak.
Yeah, I can't be on push to talk. I just forget.
Yeah, and you're like talking, and you're like, why don't you guys answer me? Oh, what is that?
CeeLo has our own push to talk.
You were talking. Oh.
When CeeLo's really mad, her mic mutes her because she shouts so loud it doesn't pick her up. So it's like she's
Wow.
muted. It's so good. What that fuck?
So that you don't hear her. That's
Yeah,
the
I
thing.
just see the animation of her
Yeah.
shouting at me and pointing. Favorite things. God, you fucking punch them keys. God, you let them keys nose, boss. Go on, hit them harder. I can taste what you're typing. Mmm.
It's not me.
It tastes like sass.
It was Meg. It was Meg.
What? Oh, it is Meg. It is Meg. I take it back. That tastes northern and dirty.
I didn't do that.
I can do the same.
Blame got pushed on. Didn't do anything. When I do it.
Chloe pulled you out from under that bus. She was like, no. And then she dobbed Megan totally. It was Meg.
What? What? No, it was my twin sister, Cleo. That's there's Chloe, it's me, and Cleo, it's my twin, evil twin sister.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So 6 people said yes. There's 3 here and 1 on the way.
Yeah.
Oh,
Blanc
Blanc will be here in about 6 years.
Yeah. She's doing the updates, I believe. Hello.
Ew. Ew.
Ew. What
Ew.
is this color?
Ew.
Oh my god.
So, what we watching?
Can you hear my background? Documentary
Oh yeah.
On what?
on a murder case.
Ah, typical. It's a
Oh,
It's a
no, that's
documentary.
good.
What murder?
A documentary.
The Junko. I forgot her last name. The Junko case.
Ah,
Really
okay.
bad one.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the murderer is Buckles. He did it. He's the duck. Please watch him
Oh
out.
yeah, I think so too.
He doesn't even react. Wow. Wow.
You guys are fucking toxic. You fucking don't. There's me typing something to someone and just hear boom boom. Someone beating up their microphone.
It's not even our mics. It's our keyboard. Same thing.
Blow really loud in my microphone, but it would be terrible. So I don't want to do that.
The code is now live. Oh, we don't need the heartbeat monitor. Jesus.
I think I'll die. Oh.
Die quieter.
No.
I have done it on the
Die.
Goose server.
Okay. Okay.
I might as well try my drink while I'm waiting.
You didn't even fancy saying the K in that.
Oh. Who's drinking something?
I mate, you didn't
Where's the
understand.
can?
You didn't understand Northern. Okay. Yeah, this is Meg. She
Yeah.
said I may as well try my drink while I'm working.
Oh, I didn't hear.
But instead, she was like,
I
"Why,
know
I man? I may as well try my drink while I'm working."
Yeah, no, that's not the same. I didn't listen.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
That was uncanny.
Sometimes, like, my brain only focuses on some things.
In my brain,
That wasn't it.
when Meg talks like that, she looks like Ant or Dec.
Oh, wow.
What the fuck?
Why, I man? I might as well try my drink while I'm waiting.
It's not even nice. It's absolutely mank.
What is it?
Radnor's fruits, cherry and vanilla sparkling.
Ugh. I bet it tastes like
It was 20 pence.
I bet it tastes like the fuzzy screen on a TV. Oh, you might be too young. Yeah, chemicals. Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Just wait for them chemicals while I suck back this Pepsi Max. Luna's so fucking cute.
Is Blanc joining us?
Cherry and vanilla flavoured apple based. What?
Is this
Joining
pub?
us?
I have a
Sweet
feeling that
potato flavouring.
I have a feeling I didn't pick public.
I'm just... Nah.
Joking.
Be right back. Host a game. Draft. Basementio.
Big Ben.
Totally.
Have an excellent one.
Ow.
Hmm?
Ow, my ears. Who fucking did that?
You. Oh my god.
What is what?
My ears.
I don't understand, but okay.
It's like someone came up to me and just coughed in my ear.
Oh, no, that wasn't
Yeah.
me. That wasn't me.
Right now
I
it's pub.
didn't-
Whoa.
Oh, hello?
Oh,
Oh my
Wow.
god, I haven't played Goose Goose Duck enough to see what the hell that is.
Sad face.
that's
Oh no, like in the outfit.
good. I think it's a he. Isn't a girl version, I don't know. Like exactly the same outfit, exactly the same name. But that was a minor.
Ah. Oh, crap.
But not this one. Oh, that's the guy version.
I'm lagging mine massively. You know what? If I could force everyone to go push to speak, I fucking would. All of you.
No,
Oh,
oh my god.
to what? What?
Stop coughing
that?
down your fucking microphone.
Oh,
Oh,
Did they talk?
okay.
They didn't.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, they looked me dead in my eye and then left.
That's why I
It
thought.
was like a fuck you.
Hello. Oh, hello.
Hello there.
like they didn't like so they left.
I need to turn you down by the first time ever.
Oh.
Why is Meg that loud? Hello, Pfeiffer. Sorry. Heart, star, Pfeiffer, heart, star, heart.
What?
No?
You forgot
Nothing.
dot.
Marky Yum Yum, I hate your name. Hello.
Marky, yum, yum.
Oi.
What did he say? Hey, Mark. You okay?
Yeah.
Good. How old are you, buddy?
42.
Ah, brother. I'm 39. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, brother. We old. We old.
Yes, sir.
Lolmart. 50.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, what up, Lolmart?
Haven't I seen you somewhere before?
I mean, I used to be pretty popular.
Oh, wow.
I'm just saying. Shucks.
What was your streaming name?
Buckles.
Did you just say Fuckles?
Yeah. That's what I said. That's exactly what I said.
Absolutely.
Just so you know, after I die, I do start singing.
She say.
I
Hey,
actually don't know. Huh?
Number
I don't
one.
want a deep voice.
Number one noob.
I just saw. I thought that was number one boop.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't even have to kick him. He just left. He knew his name was bad. Hey, Blanc.
That's funny.
Why is everyone like just absolutely fucking my ears right now? Why do I know that Emma?
You tell me.
Does it look familiar?
Hello.
Hello.
Emma looks familiar.
Why you look familiar?
Hello.
She doesn't smell familiar.
Wow.
Wow, you just smell some new people. Wow.
Don't smell people.
I just got kicked out of the lobby for talking.
This one smells like
What the
home.
fuck is this shit, guys?
Watched Barbie. Hello.
Hello, Buckles. Hi, Sativa.
Hey, Sasha. Hey, Sasha. How you doing?
What did they say about me, Sativa?
Wait, what did who say? Because they kicked me.
Oh, they kicked you too?
Wait.
Yeah, they kicked my ass.
Wait.
They kicked my ass too.
Wait, why?
Did I see right?
Yeah.
We would have
Maybe
shut up,
they
I
just
guess.
shut down the
I think
lobby.
it's
and
alright.
They kick everyone.
What'd you get kicked for? What'd you get kicked for?
We were talking.
Wait, I don't even know why we get kicked. I think we were just being distracting, but we'll be good, I promise.
Oh my god, a French girl.
It's okay, everyone in here talks too much. It's okay, especially Buckles.
Awesome.
Hey,
That's perfect.
hey, who said that?
I know you are.
Because I can't even do voices because I keep laughing.
What up, Sniles, my brother?
I'm gonna change my name. Fuck this name.
Yeah, go change your name. All the new people here, you can kill AFK people because why are they in my game AFK? Fuck them. Kill the gravy, make bank, get bitches. Don't be a dick and don't talk over people. That's the only rules, really.
Yeah, I want bitches.
Yeah, exactly. See, everyone wants bitches.
Wait, you said don't kill.
Hey, Ice.
Damn. I
I
didn't
know
hear
I'm
it.
very
I'm gonna change my name. So people will be right back.
Yeah, get back in, get
Buckles,
back
you
in.
gotta stop sniffing people without permission.
Be right back.
I'm not. I didn't do anything. Hey, young Brad.
Stop doing that without permission.
You got boobies, bro. You got boobies, bro.
Ooh, can I touch them?
Why you got boobies?
Oh,
What the
oh,
fuck?
nailed it.
Lynn, he was here a minute ago. He was botched
Nailed
Barbie.
it.
He was botched Barbie.
Oh
I
my
snails.
god! It's COVID!
Hi, what?
Oh
I
my
have
god.
snails.
Marky, do you know Brad?
Hola.
I haven't seen Day.
I'm
Wow.
so glad.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
played
yeah. I
this
wasn't.
game.
Yeah. It wasn't me.
You
Nope.
weren't
Nope.
here. Yeah, it wasn't you.
Nope. I was
haven't
never
seen
here.
snails
Nope.
in so long. Oh my god.
Yeah, I haven't seen myself in forever
What's
either.
next?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
come on.
Hi. I like apple pie.
I need to sort out everyone's mic volume because this is harassment to me.
Oh, I don't
Yeah,
have
I'm playing on my phone. So, I don't think I'll
Hey, you
be
don't
here
have
long.
the
I just.
glasses?
No, I don't.
I.
Oh my god, you're a gooner? So am I! We're both gooners!
Do we go?
Why did he join that expect
What
to
do you
do
No,
that?
you're on your own.
Indica,
Oh,
why do I know that name?
We gotta show off our eyes.
Why do I know your goddamn name?
Oh yeah. Okay.
I don't know what's happening.
Hmm. Just gonna do a mic
We
check.
start the game.
You shut the
the
fuck up.
game.
You shut the fuck up. You're lucky you're pretty.
Wow, wow.
Anyway, Sato.
Don't talk, you spread COVID.
Oh my god.
Sato.
Yes.
Okay.
Period.
Oh, shut up. Okay, everyone ready up? Let's go.
Snails don't have a mic.
Yeah, fuck snails.
No.
Oh.
no.
Kick this Lucifer. Get him out.
Yeah, snails doesn't have
Say
to
less.
Kick him.
Yeah, Snails doesn't have a mic. Oh, look, a devil worshiper.
The joking.
Lucifer.
It's my friend.
Damn, you guys are
He's my
quiet.
friend.
What the heck?
He likes the demons.
Oh, I don't know.
He's not really my friend.
Yes, he's your
No,
best
he's not
friend.
really. It was a joke.
Just a heads up about the rules. Just a heads up
Now-
about
now
the
I got a
rules.
teddy bear to protect me.
You shut the fuck up. What the? You just fell down the stairs.
What was that?
Someone. Yeah.
Anyway,
This sounds chaotic. I ain't gonna lie.
yeah, it's gonna be hell.
Alright.
So rules just to go over.
Oh, this is how I meet my mic.
Are they okay?
Much better. Anyway,
Someone's playing with
So-
pots and pans. I love that shit.
Justice.
Hello?
Hello.
Who's echoing?
It's red.
So rules: kill gravies, kill AFK people, don't be a dick, don't talk over people. Cool. Got that? Good.
Let's go.
And I swear to God, if you kill people without a reason as Vigi, I will put my thumb so far up your ass you can taste what's under my nails.
Wait, so I can.
Alright, I'm picking Vigi.
Me too, just to kill
You guys
the
play.
Yeah.
I just want a
Don't
thumb.
get mad at me and people when we do it. I'm so sorry.
Don't kill snails. They're pregnant.
Do you guys have any rules for this lobby again?
Yep. Kill
Don't sound
gravies.
like the devil.
Kill gravies. Kill AFKers. Don't be a dick. Don't talk over people.
Okay.
Oh my god, there's a Vigi there. That's crazy.
In fact,
No way.
if there is someone AFK,
No
I
way.
actively think you should kill them.
Oh my god, I can't believe there's a Vigi on the map. That's crazy.
It was Buckles.
Hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, that whatever
Oh,
they
zero
said.
left.
Who's zero?
Oh, Mega Music is here. Hey, Mega.
Wow.
Apple. I don't think he's realised. Oh. Great. Shoo up, shoo ah, shoo up, shoo ah. Hello there. Oh, I didn't mic check that person. There's someone I didn't mic check. Got stuck. I'm very far away. I'm very far away.
Hello. I get
Double
eyes
kill.
random.
Oh.
I don't think Snails has realised who you are. Someone's got a bomb.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Take it! Take it!
I don't want it. I don't want it.
No, me too.
Just run! Oh my god! Oh my god! I'm gonna die! I'm gonna die, Buckles! I'm gonna die!
Oh, what? Oh, he disconnected. Oh, was she? She must have been lover. She must have been lover. She's lover.
Die.
I got a baddie. He dropped a body and I shot him. Also, I'm trying to know who the lovers are. Who are the lovers?
Wait a minute. You killed someone? You said?
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
killed
know her
Buckles
role,
because he
she's
left the
safe.
body.
She might be the
Okay.
sheriff.
Okay.
Don't say my
I know
role.
her role. I know
Don't
her
say my
role.
role.
I'm a gooner.
Oh, damn. Wait,
So that's
also,
it?
who are the lovers? Who are the lovers?
I think they won't say.
Yeah, they don't want to say it because then they're gonna get a
They're
double. You know what I'm
bad.
saying?
They're bad lovers.
It's a bad lover.
Bad
Yeah, it's a lover
So
Interesting.
if you see a lover, just shoot them.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna shoot a lover. I don't know how, but I'm gonna do it.
We skip.
Wait, how do I vote? Oh.
Vote out my Pookie. Don't you dare
Okay,
vote
okay,
out
I
my
skip.
Pookie.
All right. I have sus on blue. Sus on blue. Whoa! Why are we voting her out?
I voted
Oh wait. Wait, are you sus? Are you not a sheriff?
No, I'm not.
She's mine now, Buckles. Always says she's my lover. Mine now, so.
I got killed for no reason.
Now.
I got take. No, it's forever jellyfish. You can't leave me.
Buckle would kill me.
Nails has no idea who I am so far. That's fine.
Yeah, I don't think he does.
He really doesn't. It's probably because my name is different. I might change it after this.
This bitch.
Ooh.
Oh, he's here.
Sativa and indica.
Was they bad? Bro, I suck at this game now.
I couldn't report the lover's death because they blew up in front of me
wait,
because
is
I'm
Snails dead?
professional. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, oh, so Tavia died. Oh, whoever killed Tavia is pretty good. But the other one's in Sendiga.
Okay, no, wait.
Okay,
Listen,
I don't know who
listen,
passed me, but they had a bomb and they put it on me.
Wait, no, can I say something? It's Java. It's Javi.
It's not. It's not.
It's
That
not.
girl.
Saba killed somebody and you ate the body. Saba killed someone and you ate the body.
Sus indica now.
Can you let me talk for a second? Thank you so much.
Like etiquette, guys.
She claimed my role last round, and that was a lie because it's my role. So I killed her. I was
Wait,
looking
you're
for
the
her.
sheriff?
Yeah.
Yeah, sus her.
Well, whoever was with her ate a dead body.
Oh, it's Indica then. Indica.
Well, don't
Indica
vote me.
was
I'm a
with
duck problem.
Sativa.
I'm a duck problem, you bastards. I'm a duck problem.
I'm a duck problem, you bastards.
Vote the vulture. Vote the vulture.
Yeah, okay, I'm a duck problem. Do you understand that? You don't vote me out over that.
We can't.
Why
Oh,
are you?
no.
Why do
Yeah,
you
this
think
is
I
I was a
vulture.
duck problem. You guys, what the fuck is this shit?
They voted the vulture.
Bombs.
You like me?
Yeah, apple pie. I felt so bad. I was like, she knows me, but I don't know who the fuck she is.
It's okay, don't worry.
Also,
I was trying to be nice. I'm like, oh.
also, I didn't kill that body. You killed me in cold blood.
Oh my god. Oh my god, that
I'm fucking
bastard.
sheriff. Yes.
You killed me in cold
Yeah,
blood.
I was Vinci. That's why I was trying to see if you were gonna say you were like a Vinci or something.
No, I was sheriff.
That motherfucker.
You killed me
Yeah,
in cold blood,
that
you fuck.
weed motherfucker.
Wait, yeah, I killed 2 bad people.
I didn't kill anybody.
Javi and the purple one?
I don't know.
Killed me for no reason.
Who's your teammate?
I voted the purple one. I didn't vote it.
Buckles.
I died
Me.
so fast. That was so sad.
You left the body behind.
No, I didn't. No, lovers died. No, I didn't. Lovers died.
Okay. I think Mega Music is the demolitionist. I just passed her and the bomb started going.
Who was in auditorium? Who was in auditorium?
I can be.
Oh, in that case, Justice. Who was with you in auditorium?
I didn't see nobody.
Then it's you. You're the duck. The sabotage for the doors to close was caught inside auditorium.
Oh.
I was finna say something about Mega because when
Too
I
bad.
was on top in boiler room last round.
That's too bad.
I suck a dick.
I'm engineer. I saw where it was caught from.
I'm Dodo.
Dodo.
It was Mega Music. It was Mega Music, I told you.
Oh, wow.
Good Dodo. Good Dodo win.
I told you guys.
Good Dodo.
Justice.
You told us what?
That's
You were the
my
Falcon,
first
Johnny.
ever.
Oh, this guy was the Falcon.
But I said Mega Music was the dog, so that's it. I was right.
I was a duck problem.
And I
Why
said
did you
I
vote
don't
me
know
out?
who.
What the
Yeah, that
hell?
was crazy. Y'all
Is
voted
there's a season pass?
Everything has season pass now, mate. Hello, Blanc.
Hello.
Hey, Buckles, I'll be back. Don't start the game.
I killed 2
Okay.
ducks. Come on now.
Killed me with cold blood. I'll fucking remember that.
My cookie did
Who's
good
the
thing.
echo?
Don't say
Somebody
nothing.
just crashed out.
For
I'm,
real.
I'm gonna remove the echo once I find out who it is.
Is it
I
mine?
know it is.
I'm not
Oh my
sure how
God.
good am I
Somebody just
audience.
freaking crashed out.
I discovered.
Echoing.
What the fuck was that?
Do you have any?
Man, I'm just gonna look
Guys,
for the
first.
Ow! Why are you fucking yelling?
It's slime, I guess.
Yeah, game over.
No need to worry. It was game over him. Yeah.
Oh, it's
It
still
was.
echoing. It was the new one.
I don't hear the echo.
This is the cool corner.
Oh.
Mimi.
How do y'all buy outfits?
Oh my god, who took my color? I'm an ugly.
I've been playing a long time.
You're a beautiful color.
No, I'm not. I'm so ugly.
You're like a nice banana. What do you mean?
How do I buy outfits?
No, it was so ugly.
What money?
Make this game low enough.
Is it with the ice cream things only or with the coins too?
Both.
I
Both.
can't do both.
Buckles kick the EG.
Who the fuck is EG?
Oh, who? Who, sorry? EG.
You already did.
Oh,
Oh, the left.
this is
Never
the
mind.
cool side.
Someone want to do an echo check?
Me.
You know it's not me.
Alright, I didn't hear my voice twice. Is it me?
Okay.
Damn, turn your fucking mic down.
No, that was intentional.
Cool.
Oh, you
Nails, you
that
yelling.
was
You yelling in your
That-
mic.
That's just Snails. He eats his mic while he talks. He's got something wrong with
I'm actually not.
him.
Who's
And for
yelling?
fire too.
Hey, Mimi. Mimi.
I just said get rid of them.
You're asking can we spot and you haven't even fucking introduced yourself?
The tables.
Hi,
Hey,
hi guys.
Why are
Mimi.
you waiting?
Because I'm mic checking people.
Mimi. Come here.
Bye, Mimi.
What's
Bye.
going?
Oh, come here.
Oh dear.
Hello, Blink. Blickin'.
Can we start? Can we freaking start, please?
Hey, how's it going?
You shut your whole mouth, whoever said that. I'm doing mic checks.
Who's the main country girl? Who's that?
It's
What's her name?
Sativa or Indica.
Oh.
The country girl?
Yeah, you sound country as fuck.
Oh, no, it's not. No, it's not.
Mississippi.
Oh, it's fucking Justice. Justice!
Yeah, I'm from Mississippi.
I apologize to both of you. Justice, you motherfucker. I'm mic checking people.
No, it's not justice.
Hey, Sim. Sim.
It is
Sim
me.
is okay. She's my friend. Sim
Sim.
is cute.
Alright, I'm just gonna go over here and be quiet.
Abno Mahaya Eggy.
Oh my god, that name. You need to kick them when you saw that name.
That gives me permission, right? Does that give me permission to do it?
What's wrong with the names? I don't.
Nothing, they're gone now. We don't need to worry about them. Blixnin. Blixkin? Don't.
Yo.
Yo. Okay, cool. Let's go.
Hey yo, what up?
Hey, yo, twin.
We're having a good game, guys. I'm Buckles' girlfriend.
No way.
Why am I not surprised?
Oh my god, it's so nice to finally meet you.
Oh.
Buckles, you got a secret girlfriend in the lobby?
Snails, you're number 2, right?
Buckles, that's crazy. I can't believe that.
That was me. I'm a boy. I'm a man.
I said I said you're number 2.
They have a name.
Damn.
It's Mega.
Mega, I swear to God. If you
on a fucking phone.
I'm sorry.
every time you cough, you literally penetrate me.
Like every time you talk, you get a cough. COVID.
Yeah, no,
COVID.
please kill us.
Every time you talk. You don't sound Canadian.
Okay, we need to start putting down the chest.
Every time we touch, I get
If-
a feeling.
If we have an assassin, you're in trouble.
No, not the tables.
Oh, fuck.
There we
Oh,
go.
we have a
No,
sniper.
assassinate my
I want to be able to talk.
You have
Don't
to
silence.
No, you have the wrong size, Max. You need a big one. Actually, I'll put it down here.
Two.
Wow.
Hello. Wait, I get to get Meg back. I get to get Meg back. Two.
I'm gonna shoot somebody.
Oh God, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Oh. Oh.
I said I was gonna shoot somebody. I asked the people who I should shoot, and I accidentally shot. I feel so bad.
Yeah, I watched it happen. That's exactly what
I
happened.
feel so bad. I killed my Pookie, guys.
So you killed the country girl?
No, she left.
No,
Justice
I
left.
killed my Pookie.
Sativa, she
You
killed.
guys can vote me out. You
She
just
killed her in
vote
cold
me
blood.
out. I feel so bad.
Let's keep her in, guys.
She was mean. She deserves it.
Guys, let's keep her in.
I feel so bad.
Let's make her suffer. I can't believe you did that to your friend. Let's skip.
Yeah, how dare you do that?
How
You
dare
killed
you
her
do
in
that
cold
to your
blood. That's fucked up.
your only friend?
You're an evil person.
Your only friend in this lobby, and you did that.
Never.
Yeah, your only friend.
Rose, you can suck my nuts. You can suck my nuts.
Don't.
Nick.
Don't.
Okay,
He
thank
will.
you for the offer.
He will.
I will.
He'll fucking do it. Don't tempt him.
For the offer.
He ain't a pussy. He'll do it.
All right, time to suck.
He ain't a pussy. He'll do it.
Let's go. Let's go. I'm gonna suck the lint off your nuts.
You're gonna be lintless.
You have lint on your nuts?
Yeah, Indica does.
No, you do. I'm sucking your nuts.
I killed my Pookie.
How dare you kill your own friend?
Wait, I'm confused.
Good job, skipping, guys. Good job. Make her suffer.
What a murderer you are.
Yes, sir.
You're horrible. You're
Make her suffer. That's funny. Da, 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 da. Two. Coming out of the tunnel, who's over here? It's a jellyfish. Don't you do it! Don't you fucking do it! Don't you fucking do it!
Okay.
I'm fast as fuck. No! No! I was running for my life. I got into the armor, and she shot. Who'd she shoot? Sato, maybe?
Buckles, are you pigeon? You going around spitting on people and hiding in
No.
armor suits. Are you pigeon?
No.
Spreading that COVID.
You're pigeon.
Yeah, I'm just gonna hide, guys.
Nasty, nasty.
Guys, I'm just gonna hide.
Or
Go
he
spitting on
could be a
people.
baddie.
I'm gonna leave snail trails on everyone.
Hey.
No, that's so nasty.
Oh, everyone died. The murderer, the betrayer is dead.
I'm voting you out. You're nasty.
Don't vote me out. I'm only pigeon. Leave me alone. Yeah, Indica killed.
You're nasty. You spit on me.
I think Indica killed
Oh shit.
killed
You got
Jelly.
COVID.
It was a failed sheriff. She killed Jelly. Skip, guys. Don't vote out the pigeon. If you do, you're fucking gutless. You little ballless bitches. If you vote the pigeon, you're fucking ballless. You're gutless little rats. You fucking gutless little worms. I hope you get shit in your pants. I can't believe they voted the pigeon. I can't believe they voted the pigeon. I'm devastated.
Buckles,
Yes, darling.
can you do the setting like
Buckles, I was just scaring you. I
put down
could
the
only put words and I
amplifier
shot
and
my pookie.
Yeah.
setting and sound? Put down the amplifier and
Well, on me.
yeah, amplifier.
Yeah. Let me look. Oh yeah, I got a new mic, and I don't need it anymore.
I saw Blanc kill this body, and I reported it.
I saw the sniper. That was very scary.
I saw it too.
Yeah, Blanc did this. Blanc is a murderer. And I reported it. I called you cold blood, Blanc. How dare you? How dare you, Blanc, do this?
I think Blinken is the sniper.
Sim claimed Canadian in the beginning.
Nah, I don't want to hear this. I saw you in cold blood do this. How dare you? How dare you kill this poor person? How dare you? Oh my God, you're a horrible person. You belong with Indica in the dead chat around.
Snail, you sound like a D1 gaslighter right now.
No, I'm not. She killed this person. How dare you, Blanc?
One proof that's Canadian, so.
No, they're not.
Bye bye, Pelican. Now
What?
Pelican?
I don't hear the echo. Mara's got a bit of background noise.
For the thing to go.
Cause you didn't vote. Did you forget? Like,
I don't know. Why you wanted me? I'm friended. Listen, I forgot there was a Canadian rule.
You should have just said nothing at this point.
I was so confused.
You forget. Pelican cannot vote. They can only skip.
Oh!
You give yourself out.
I need to virtually punch Meg.
Okay, I keep getting silenced. And last time I was silenced, I was only near Marky. It's Marky.
You only passed him or passed him?
I was only with him.
Sounds like some gaslighting, bro.
Okay, well, I haven't spoken till now. Think about that.
I think the clown is dead, but I'm not sure. The sniper were.
Oh, Marky is the
I think
silence.
Blinken is the sniper.
Weird. Maybe
Well, can we get the
Blinken is
silencer
the
out first?
sniper.
Yeah, we can get him out, but I just think Blinken is the sniper.
If I was a duck, I would have killed Cyan. They ran right by me.
Really? I'm really not sure though right now. Oh.
Bless you.
Don't die, Meg. Don't die.
Fuck, I swear to God, Meg. Fucking swear to God.
Yo, whoever was silencing the guy was doing God work.
Tell her after the game.
I told her now.
Oh shit.
I need,
Let's go join a different lobby because I can only do one game.
go on then. Move. Get out. Leave us. Leave us, you little turncoats. You're not sorry. You're
How
not
dare
fucking
you?
sorry.
You hate us. We were best friends. We were best friends, and you just left.
Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Fuckles.
Wow.
Fuckles, I'm hearing you guys, but I can't find my phone to play. There it is.
I need to tell Mara to turn down her sensitivity. I can hear everything.
I can't play this game on the phone. I gotta play this game on my laptop.
Oh, Blinken, whatever his name is sniping. He's not finding anybody. He's the worst sniper in the world.
Cool guy.
This is the way he's got off the map with the sniper. He's just stood still.
Oh my god!
I just followed the target.
I hate your screen.
Why? Oh, he got Chloe. He got Chloe's.
Losing.
I knew it.
It was blinking as well.
Oh.
Putain de Sausage.
And who?
Lynn said that. Blinken's the sniper.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you hear Lynn then? She Putain de Sausage.
No, I
She did it. I have proof. I have proof. 47 minutes in.
Okay, so I just
I think it's Blinken.
Yeah.
I think it's Blinken. I really do.
Wait. Shishel died.
It's Blinken. I know it is. I think he's the sniper.
Oh, I have no idea. Why was I voted?
Why do you vote you?
East win.
Oh my god. I had that.
Blanc, wait.
Bro, you were so suspicious of me since the beginning.
Mara, could I trouble you to just turn your sensitivity down a smidge?
Oh, I got you, yeah.
Thanks.
No, I like hearing the keyboard. It's pretty cool.
If I could virtually punch anyone right now, it'd be you. It would be you.
I actually keep moving my microphone away from my mouth.
In your mouth, so it's louder. You put it in your mouth.
Is that better?
Away.
I deep throat my mic.
Is my sensitivity better?
Yes. You did. You didn't.
Yes,
You
Daddy.
keep scaring.
I've turned her down to 10.
Sound your sensitivity in the setting.
Hello, Gru.
In the sound. Mega.
Hello.
Hello there.
Wow.
In setting. Sound.
Fuckle.
Guru is echoing.
Oh.
Still the same person for the last 3 rounds.
Were you trying to be Obi-Wan Kenobi?
I don't try and be Obi-Wan Kenobi, darling. I am
Yes,
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, fuck, you're so cool.
At one point, I had the same haircut as Ewan McGregor in Star Wars. My mate used to call me Obi. Nice memory.
Nails, get ready.
Sorry, I'm trying to do my computer, Daddy.
To what?
I saw you play on your
What?
phone. What does it matter?
I know. I'm trying to get off my phone.
He's trying.
I'm ready to die.
He throws his phone across the room.
Oh my God! King Kong Kong, leave me alone.
Okay, that was echo.
I love the echo. That was a good echo.
I know.
I love the echo.
I
don't know, man.
Louise. The same person for the last 3 rounds. But
It is.
Who is it?
But it's only every now and
I think
then.
it's Louis Mart.
It is
I really
Lomart.
think it's Louis Mart.
It is Lomart.
Louis
But
Mart
it's,
sounds like the coolest guy in the room.
Snails.
What? What? I'm being positive. What are you talking about? Huh? What do you mean? Huh?
PMA. PMA.
Why are you trying to give me a laxative?
What?
A laxative.
Fuck.
La 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 la. Social. Agiuetti, Jonti, Agiuetti, Agiuetti, Jonti, Agiuetti.
I'm just gonna go over here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna follow you. Lynn saw us. Lynn saw us come in.
Bro, they come here. We meet back here.
Yeah, I'm gonna slash someone before I do that.
Wait, you're a bad dog?
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is why did you do this to me? Okay, I guess I gotta lie.
You're gonna be bad for me. Oh, someone just went pop.
You're dead ass. You're dead ass a bad daddy.
I think Lynn just blew up, judging by her reaction on camera.
Good for her. Good for her.
Yeah, pub lobbies are fucking chaos.
Are they?
Yeah, it's so I like sweat. By the time I'm done tonight, I'll be sweating.
I'm just worried, like, to say jokes because I don't know their ages.
Nah, do it. Fucking do it, mate. I kick them if they sound really young.
No, I mean, I'm like filtered, but you know, some of them seem pretty cool. But I'm not trying to get cool with them if they're fucking minor.
Lynn's just said, "Ew, you two are lovers." Did you not hear us? Did you not hear us laugh when we see each other?
Lynn, you hear this, Lynn? Yeah. Oh shit! I gotta do it fast so I don't get kicked.
Go.
I hate moving around with this thing.
Hi.
I'm just cleaning the statue. Just cleaning the statue. Nice and shiny, nice and shiny.
You can't believe you just stood there. I can't believe you just stood there. Oh, there's a dead body. There's a dead body.
There's a dead body. Here.
Don't kill him. Don't kill him. He's my lover. He's my lover. No!
I had the bomb, and I went down, and then Buckles is just next to 2 dead bodies, and I don't know what's going on.
It was a failed sheriff.
Yeah, I'm engineer.
The
Yeah,
thing
I think
is,
it's a failed sheriff.
I saw snails shouting out, there's someone's body, and I'm like, okay, so what happened?
It's a failed sheriff.
I think the demo was low smart. I think he's the demo.
No, it's not me. It's not me. I'm engineer. That's why I was going in there.
You engineer bombs.
It could be also a good excuse.
Lomart.
Yeah, it could
Because someone could be engineer could be also the guy.
Lomart. Duck says what?
I don't know. I'm just scared.
Lomart. Duck says what?
I'm gonna blow up.
There's a dick in you.
So what we voting for?
I'm voting for the demo.
Well, I don't know who the heck the demo is. Well, actually, wait, hold on. Right, whatever your name is. You said you have a bomb.
She's the bomb, she said.
I have a bomb.
She's the bomb.
Ooh, the bomb.
I also have a bomb. That is true.
I'm engineer. What the fuck were you doing?
You engineers make bombs.
How you do that, guys?
Engineers make bombs. Engineers make bombs. Classic. Oh, Mara went boom. Bye, Mara. Sayonara, Mama. Mama? Mara? Mara go bomb. Go boom. Mara go boom.
Oh,
my friend! Ah, oui, oui! Goodbye, au revoir!
Screenshot this, man! Screenshot this! Yeah!
I showed the other with the bomb. Sorry.
If you want to be
Did
my
I
friend,
tell you when I saw you?
you gotta
Yeah.
get with my friend.
Lynn, did you not notice when you saw us, we both laughed and ran off together?
Yeah.
I want to be your friend.
I've got too many friends.
I have people in here that I'm at my friend list that like 100 days not played.
I think I've got longer.
Same. 300.
The oldest on my friend list is over 300.
Anytime I get engineer, I'm just gonna sing in the army.
Femducks 291.
Oh, I see Honey here. I gotta delete people. Man.
Frosty's 264.
One I haven't played with hasn't been online for 316 days. It's a
Gi-
shocker.
Giro's 210.
42. I don't know. Their name is Dragon Radiance.
That's really,
I
really
was just friending random people back then.
edgy names. Rika was on 73 days ago.
Just going to do everyone that's not been
I guess
on
goodbye, T John.
200
I
days.
remember you, T John.
Oh my god, I'm off screen. Ah.
Hello, Pezza.
Hey, why didn't you press ready? Why didn't you press ready?
Fuck it, he's got a learning difficulty, alright? Leave him alone.
Oh.
Guys, I'm dry.
Hey,
Y'all
press
got
ready,
beers?
dude.
Oh, your country.
Everybody press ready.
How you doing, mate?
Everybody press ready.
I'll tell you what I am going
Who
to
are you
press.
to tell me to press ready?
You go press ready somewhere else. Hello there.
Yeah, I'm hot and ready like Little Caesars.
Oh, you taste like it as well.
Is Little Caesars in the UK? Is Little Caesars in the UK?
No, but I'm cultured, you see. I'm cultured.
Oh yeah, no, it tastes like cardboard. You're not lying. It got better though.
Oh.
What is the UK equivalent?
Pizza Hut. It's got to be Pizza Hut.
Tea and crumpets. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Salah, do you have a microphone? Who the fuck is scraping glass?
It's this one right here. I see your mic lighting up yellow.
Yo,
You
snails.
did it.
Huh?
What's up, beautiful?
What are you doing, Sato?
What did I do?
You look scraping glass.
Snails.
Sorry.
What were you doing?
No, we can play a what?
Yeah. What were you doing?
Play.
Oh, sorry. I'm just gonna mute myself.
What were you doing though?
No, I know you're doing. You're sharpening a sword to stab people.
Oatmeal, leave her alone.
I just want to know. I just want to fucking know.
You're pressure bully. Give him his oatmeal.
What is happening here?
How big's the sword?
This is the cool corner. This is the cool corner. No.
Wait.
What's happening?
What were you sharpening? What were you What were you sharpening? What were you sharpening?
This is the cuddle corner. We want oatmeal. Share.
Right, mic check.
I want oatmeal.
Mic check.
Oatmeal, please.
Paola.
Oh my god.
We want some oatmeal. Share the oatmeal.
Oh
Come
my
on.
god.
Yo.
What kind of oatmeal you eating?
Paola doesn't speak.
Oatmeal.
Hello.
So what kind of oatmeal? Tell me. No one will know. What oatmeal?
This guy.
Oh my god.
I was not eating oatmeal. I was
Give
eating
us all.
The blue one.
Yo.
Why the fuck you lie? Say she ain't oatmeal.
You speak.
Liar.
I just randomly
Hello.
say it. You believe it. That's because you're dumb.
Mohammed. Mohammed, brother.
Whoa.
Mohammed, brother.
She called me stupid. I'm
Yo, what's
sorry.
going on over here, huh? What's going on over here?
Call her back.
Hey,
I
leave us
don't know.
alone. This is the oatmeal corner, bro.
How do you guys get down that far? Why can't I
Blue
walk all
one.
the way down?
Buckles.
Because you
Sorry?
have a small pepper.
Rafa.
You don't know how to get
That's
down.
a what?
Yo, Rafa, brother. Sister.
Hey.
Extraterrestrial, Rafa. Yo. You can't run away from me. I will get you. Okay.
Also, the blue one. Who
Say
like
less.
toes. I don't think they have mic. Yeah, they're running.
You can't run from me.
Bats, can you get ready?
Nobody can run from me.
Bats, can you get ready? Bats, can you get ready? Get ready! Fuck.
5,
I hate it. I have to say
4,
it over 3 times.
3, 2, 1. Anyway. Nim? Is it Nim? Nim.
Nincompoop? Nincompoop?
Can't run from me.
Don't run.
We. Oh.
I love you, Buckles. Oh my god, Buckles.
Whoa, who's saying that? That's crazy. Weirdo.
That's fine.
Oh my god.
I think it was Bats who said that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoever that was.
Yeah, they have a crush on you, Buckles.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Only one person can crush on me.
Yeah, it's me, Daddy.
Wait, who said that? That was weird.
Jellyfish sounded so weird then.
Oh, she sounded better. I fucking hate my room.
Do. Let's open this. Let's open this. Have a rose, buddy. Take that rose. Have I opened it? It's now open. Yeah, hooray. Hooray, it's open. It's open. Magical Trevor, he's there once again. Oh, Suto, yeah. Suto. Oh, can you see him? What do you know? Oh.
Right, it is by the statue right above dungeon.
Purple is also in labs. Purple's in labs, and the only person who ran past me is Sutol, but I can't say it's them. I have no proof.
Dungeon, you said.
I was like by the time down in the hallway going inside study and then down.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, it's just happened
Because I passed someone who passed by too.
Yeah, you passed me.
Oh, I was.
Oh yeah. Oh,
I'm with
sorry.
Blank and
I didn't know
Shell.
who I passed.
Interesting.
But yeah, why did you come from, Blank?
Well, I came from the bottom, so I was in the dungeons. I wasn't ordered in the labs, so I came from the storage locker curiosities.
Wait, were you the one that I passed by outside the foggy cave hallway?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, you were.
cave, I wasn't.
Ah, okay.
No, she's referring to me,
Cave was
Blanc.
on the other side of the map.
She's referring to me, Blanc.
No.
I don't know.
I don't know what to think.
like I said, there was one person, but she was too far away. So I'm going to skip. Random Blanc vote, though.
No, no, that's the.
Is that a
spy,
dodo?
I think.
Is that a dodo?
It's the spy.
Yeah,
I think that's
Oh
spy.
no, I should have voted myself. I didn't.
Hmm. Interesting.
Buckles, I'm gonna stalk you, okay?
You gonna what me?
You're being stalked.
Oh,
You're being
fair.
stalked.
That's fair. You'll see when I die. 2 people standing very close to that sabotage.
Don't like that. Don't like that at all.
So as soon as the lights went off, like I found the body in study because again I wanted to go like down to auditorium and yeah.
Oh, everyone was in labs.
Kill the
Apart
Canadian,
from.
yes. Yes.
Oh! Oh! Oh, Suto. No!
Also,
So
it was
sorry.
4 of us together above
Yeah, we all
like,
sort of.
lab when you called a meeting.
We all met in lab, like, while we were here.
I was with Blank the whole time. Yes, that's true.
Oh.
Well, the killers are still left because I'm just the Falcon.
Ooh.
Oh.
Ooh.
Just letting y'all know.
You could have shanked me. And you didn't. I appreciate that.
Honestly, I only killed one person, and well, 2 people now.
I appreciate that.
I thought JT was like.
Yeah,
that's
I
already
killed
dead.
JT and Shul.
I like
Yeah,
the
so
people
just in
name.
case for the geese people, there's still 2 killers.
Oh gosh. Right.
Well, no. Well, I've got to do this task. Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I've been trying to find you the whole game.
I know. Same.
Bang.
Good.
Like I said. Like I said.
Oh my gosh, that was scary.
two predators just looking at a baby calf.
I killed slaves in front of at least 3 people. No one see it. I'm so happy.
Because the lights were off.
Yeah, I turned it
Hello,
off.
hello.
Hello.
I'm from England. Hello.
You are not from England.
Hello.
That's a Chinese.
You're from England? Oh my god, you sound just like my friend Buckles.
You sound.
Oh my god.
No, I'm from England. You know England.
No, you don't sound like your mother has a wretched
You
cunt.
sound like you're from Asia.
I don't mean to sound racist, but you really don't sound like you're from England.
No, I'm from England.
I do not appreciate. I do not appreciate this. Tell me, ba. Tell me, ba. I get to use it.
Do you eat cats and dogs?
Tell me, ba.
No. I hate cat. You know?
Whoa.
Did you just fucking say you hated cats?
I mean,
Brother.
it's not Chinese.
Brother.
Are you gonna share your oatmeal?
Brother.
I'm done. It was all mine.
That's fucking
Oh, you
selfish.
can revert it to me.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Me toxic.
One hole and that's it.
That's okay. He'll human centipede you. It's fine.
Let's go.
Oh my god.
Delicious.
Chocolate pudding.
Wait.
Oh my god.
Me toxic.
Yes.
Me toxic.
Oh my
god.
This is delicious.
Toxic.
2 days in a row.
No.
Toxic.
I love chocolate pudding.
Hello there.
Hello.
No.
Lay.
Hello.
Hello there. Something ninja. Air fryer. Speak.
Hello.
Ooh.
Hello, air fryer.
Oh, I love air fryers.
Yeah, she's Ninja.
Oh.
Good brand.
Who the fuck is Ninja?
Ninja.
Ninja air fryer.
I want to be ninja.
Well, who keeps saying
Putain,
this weird stuff?
putain de salsange.
Huh? No, I'm learning Italian.
Ah, I can speak Italian. Boopy.
I can do pargola. Pargola.
Fattore fica.
Right.
Are we getting a random round? Everyone random?
What
Yeah.
the fuck? Dora the Explorer?
Yes.
That was a German Dora Explorer. that was a Doris Explorer.
I had hoped that we could get a all random round.
Yeah, whoever player 5 is, you're a scumbag.
Why would you willingly be demo?
Yeah, why would you voluntarily pick the worst role?
I would not voluntarily be demo.
Why are you judging people being demo for, huh?
Because they want to shit on people's chests. That's all they want to do.
I don't want to be. I don't want a bomb.
That's what a demo is. Shits on people.
Demo, give her the bomb first, please. Just give her the fucking bomb.
Whoever picked this role, you're a scumbag, and I love it. I am a goose.
Hey, hi, Buckle.
Hello there. I am a goose. Hello there. I need to find a specific someone.
Don't give me the bomb.
I don't have the
Shoot
bomb.
you in cold
I
blood.
goose. I goose.
Okay, Goose. Okay.
But my life depends on someone else. I haven't found them yet. I'm going looking.
Right now, you and somebody else would die.
Wow.
How does this work?
You smell weird. To find this person. Goodbye, my lover. Goodbye, my friend. You have been the one.
Okay, so
That's
I
it all.
was looking for the body and I couldn't find it for the life of me, but I found it now and I've no clue on who could have killed.
I don't think
She has no
Where
clue.
is it?
I don't think it's Mara, because she was following me around when I was going, goodbye, my lover. Goodbye, my friend. I don't think it's toxic because he was stuck near furnace trying to do a task that he can't figure out.
9.
It's. I think.
To be
it's
fair,
not
that
like-
task is hard.
I think he was
I
killed like.
I think
Oh,
it's
sorry.
Suto.
Shit.
One or
It's
two
definitely
minutes away.
Suto.
Blanc is saying no. What's that, Blanc? Blanc? She was shouting 9. Oh. Where is the body? Chloe?
Where's the dead body?
Sorry. Next to empty chamber, the sacrifice.
Ah, near the bell.
My accent is like.
What do you reckon? What do you reckon?
There.
Just vote Ninja?
You sound like you're from Africa. Are you from Africa?
Me?
Wow.
Yes.
You
Wait,
know
are we skipping?
from where I'm from.
I don't hear any clicks.
Yeah, you're from. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's culture. That's culture, right?
Whoa! What a quote! Say, what are you? Because you're from Africa.
Wow, low-key racism.
Yeah.
I think my lover disconnected.
Oh, you love it.
Yeah.
Suto?
I think so.
The one who just died.
I think it's Suto. If someone just died, I'd be dead, wouldn't I? Now I'm just.
I thought you can see that at the meeting.
Yeah, it's Suto. Oh. I'll just stay here and rub myself against this armor.
Ew! What the fuck, man?
Hmm. Oh, hey, Mara.
Sniffing the armor.
No.
What's wrong with you?
No, I'm not doing anything. Smells like salt. Smells like salt and dust.
So gross.
Hello, guys.
Get away
Hello there.
from me! I don't want a bomb.
Hang on, I'm just gonna rub myself against his armor quick.
We're going
You're
on
so
a trip
dusty
in my
and
favorite
nasty.
rocket ship. Oh, who's in here?
Lynn. That's why I'm rubbing myself against it.
Oh, word. I'm not going to human centipede right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like this.
Oh.
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 Yeah.
Oh, snails. It's
Snails.
snails. It's snails. It's snails.
Just do it.
It's snails. He called us Zabo.
How's it?
I killed Snails, and he was bad, cause I'm sheriff, and he died, and he's dead. Yeah.
When he stopped moving and the sab went off, that was so funny.
Okay, so
And he
I
has
gotta
no reaction.
apologize. My cat was trying to get onto my desk. That's
That
how
was
it
funny.
is.
That was funny.
I thought I had.
Also, Snails didn't react when someone died.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? It felt good killing him, so you know what? It's okay.
Kill kill Mega. Mara. Kill Mega.
Oh my god.
Okay, I'll kill Mega.
Fucking
Mega,
Meg.
I love you.
Cough down the mic one more time, bitch.
I love you, but I need to kill you.
I think you should kill Buckles now.
Well, my lover's not here, so I'm literally useless.
Anyone who comes across me first, they're dying. So just beware.
Okay, so I'm going to run.
I only want to do that to Lynn.
Beware.
I noticed that quiet cough. I have been the one. Right. I got 3 books. Where do these books go again? Down here? These books do go down here. Hello, books. Key, lube, and orange. Yeah. Oh, someone went boom. Sweep up a little. Gonna scooch on in. It's time to hear about you. There we go. Oh. I heard bomb too.
Wait,
Yeah.
you're in the chest? I thought you were in the chest.
Huh? No, I was down here sweeping.
You said about people thinking bombs, huh? That's you gay little shit.
That fucking Blanc.
Yeah, I gave it to you before you smacked me, you little shit. How about that one?
Buckles, you didn't see my body?
I did not. Where was it?
It was like right next to you. Like I died. I was at the laboratory at the lift task, you know.
Oh, I didn't see.
Yeah, kill the jellyfish.
Right
Yeah,
next to me,
I like
I was
this.
what the fuck?
Damn.
I might have seen it.
Blanc killed me.
You have it.
Blanc killed
Oh,
me
Mara, you
and,
blow up.
Mara
Yeah,
went boom.
Mara blew up. I don't know how. That's crazy how she blew up. That's crazy. Such a tragedy.
I hear the bomb. Oh no, we might lose Mara.
That's crazy how Mara blew up. It's insane.
See, I told you to kill her.
Wow.
I told you.
Blanc.
I couldn't find her. Oh, cool. Right when I spawned and I had the bomb and I died.
Blanc, I saw the sweat on your. I saw.
Cause you're the bomb. That's why.
On your head.
Oh, you mean when I was doing the light, Chloe? I couldn't see because I was doing the light.
Oh, I
Oh,
saw the
oatmeal
sweat on
left.
Blanc's head. Like, wow, is he find out there's a body like 2 feet in front of him?
Hi.
Wow.
We just
I
whispered
was-
hi in my ear like that.
Yo, you sound so hot. Just letting you know. Whoever said that.
Thank you.
Whoa, you're like a robot. Who are you, robot
Yeah,
man?
it was voice.
Is that you, robot?
It's dark red.
Red ribbon.
Oh, you're the
I
robot.
think it's
Hey,
it's
Snails, get ready,
Snails,
Snails.
guys. It's Snails.
Oh,
Hey,
what's up,
robot
fam?
man.
No, it's not me.
I need to turn him down.
Hey, robot man. You don't have a voice changer. That is a beautiful voice. 100%.
Can you talk more? See, please.
Get ready.
Yeah, she wants to know if you're a demon, so she can give you
No.
her number.
Star, bro. Stars, bro.
No, it's really like a voice mode, I think.
Oh no, no, it can't be. That's his real voice. Yeah,
Like his voice is not really like.
his voice is
Yeah.
hot. Okay.
And he was kicked because voice mode.
No, he was kicked because he asked me to start like 4 times.
Oh no, but like his voice.
Oh, it was a mod. When he said bro, you heard it.
Yeah.
It changed.
Was like.
PJO fan.
Max is starting.
You have OnlyFans?
What?
No.
Oh, sorry. I don't want your OnlyFans.
God, no. Hey, it's Jay. Hey, Jay.
No, that was too scary. That was too scary.
Jay.
No.
Jay.
No.
I won't
Hello,
prefer
kid.
them.
Over 18.
Wow.
Yes. Adults, please. I like
Hello,
adults.
hello, Kin.
Especially British ones with
Kin.
glasses.
Oh.
Kin.
Ooh.
Ken.
I was about to say this now. I was like, I don't wear glasses, and I was looking at my character and me on the mic on the camera, like, oh, okay. I've got glasses in
What
both.
up, kid? How you doing, Ken? What's up, Ken? What up, Ken?
Ken.
What's up? What's
Ken.
up, bro? What's up, bro?
They were harassed to leave.
Yo, kid. What up, bro?
We harassed them to leave.
Where's Ken?
Just so the new people know, the rules are kill AFK people. You can kill the gravy whenever you fucking want. Kill everyone you want, and don't be a dick. That's it.
And Buckles is trans. Just guys, let me know.
Trans am because I'm badass.
Every chance you get, kill snails. Kill snails. Every chance.
No! If you kill me, you're
Murder
transphobic.
him in cold blood.
Yeah, you're transphobic, and you hate Puerto
Murder him
Ricans,
in cold
and you hate
blood.
black people.
Murder him in cold
Yeah,
blood.
if I die, you have a small penis.
I'm gonna kill you.
A what?
He's not gonna kill you. He gonna fuck you.
Oh, Buckles, you look so lavish.
Thanks.
Oh my god, Buckles. You look so hot. Oh my god, Buckles.
Oh wait. I'm gonna roll back the years here.
Koden er W3E
Yup,
Excuse me?
whatever you said, I agree, sir.
Excuse me?
3TB.
Yup.
Nerd.
Tibbers, whatever you said.
Let's see what's.
You wanna be? You wanna see a part of the deep V?
Ooh, I can definitely say your name. Hey, Buckles, what? I bet you don't know what this person's name is.
Oh yeah, I do.
What's up?
It's.
Yeah, what is it?
Ja, men vad du kan svara lite. Ja, för det.
Buckles, how you say his name? I'm just trying to figure out if you know. Because I definitely know it.
Yeah. It's
I definitely know it.
Jack Daniel.
It's
I think.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. Yep, I was right. Yep.
Hey,
I think his name means.
you want to be a part of the deep V?
Dildo.
Oh, skin flute. That's what it means.
His name is Dildo.
Dildo.
Zito Moz.
Nice.
That's a good name. That's a good name, brother.
Zito Moz.
Yes.
Yes, you have the best name ever.
Chloe, what the fuck?
Oh, you have a vibrator on. Oh, that's a dildo.
No, it was my phone. It's when I.
Oh, no. You getting freaky tonight.
E.
Oh, shit, Chloe. I
E.
see you, my girl.
E.
I see you, Chloe.
E.
It's a
E.
special
E.
demon one, isn't it?
E.
Yeah, you know that.
Oh, never mind. Never mind. I want to go over here. No. No, I don't want the demon one. No.
Hey, Goose. Goose.
No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you.
No.
Goose.
You don't want the brand?
Goose.
I have
No,
it
no, no,
in
no. I'm good.
the
Goose.
whole reference if you want.
No, 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 no. I'm good. I'm good. You can keep the demon.
I,
I'm
and
good.
I have the whole collection.
Hallo,
I can
så
send
Dander?
it to you.
Oh, that sounds like a grown ass man right there. Oh, he left.
Nah, he was fucking removed. He didn't. He wasn't there. He was not there.
Yeah, Buckles didn't want any other alpha males in the party.
Yeah, I was afraid.
Right, Buck?
I was that scared. I went and got a real outfit on.
Yeah.
Hey, but why do you have boobs now?
Hello.
Hey, Mix.
Oh,
Mix.
we trying to show boobies.
Mix.
Hold on.
Oh my god, ew.
Oh my God, we're back again.
Are you judging my boobies?
Marley.
Oh
Marley.
oh
Marley.
my
Marley. Marley.
Male, male.
Yeah, who's trying to see my
Male.
titties?
Male.
Yeah.
You prêt? Hello, guys.
Yeah.
Get ready.
Do you like them?
Hello, guys.
Do you like
How
them,
are
Chloe?
Huh? No, not really.
Hello.
But they're
How are
pointing.
you?
They get to point at people.
Justice.
Whoever is pointing is stupid. Whoever is
Justice.
pointing at is really stupid.
I
Justice.
guess so.
Justice.
Yeah. Whoever my titties are pointing at is really stupid. Super stupid. Like really dumb.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wait.
Mhm.
Now it's you.
Oh, 3 people. Okay. Yes, I like this.
Matt Prizor, you've got a mic, haven't you? Marley, do you have? I just see your mic flash.
What?
Hello.
Just kick him.
Hello.
Why?
No, I think it talks.
Okay.
Why?
Yeah, I think it.
He sounds young. You're not born in '95.
No,
Nah, that's a grown ass man right there. What you mean?
It sounds
Can we
French,
play
so...
the game?
I don't think we can
Please.
play the game. No.
Play the game.
It
Yes,
sounds like his
yes.
English is his first language.
I can have one French person. I can only have one French person here, I'm
Yeah, I'm
afraid.
part French.
Hey.
Oh look, son of Eddie. What's up, son of Eddie? How you doing, sir? How
Night,
you doing, buddy?
Nightcrawler.
Wait, can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can, Nightcrawler.
We try not to every day.
Whoa. That's fine.
White Gift
Oh,
69.
we love you. I'm sorry. That was mean. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm a piece of shit. I'm a piece of shit. Yes.
Whoa, who's punched their
Ooh,
keyboard?
Boom shakalaka. Oh no, someone's angry. Someone's a menace to society.
Right.
I wanna.
Everyone has mic. Quick, ready up. Quick, Nightcrawler. Go.
I don't have a mic.
Go. Nightcrawler. Ready the fuck up.
Never mind, but you're talking.
There we go.
No, I'm using telepathy.
Oh, Buckles, I missed you so much, Daddy.
Whoa, Buckles, you're a fan.
Yeah, her name's Jellyfish. She is my number one.
That's it. Yeah, it smells like fish too. Oh, boom.
I
No.
should have chosen duck roll.
She smells like soap.
What? Oh,
that's some odd smelling smoke.
She smells like soap and lotion. Straight up.
Oh, are you playing, Blanc?
You can't smell. They give you COVID. You have no
I was
smell.
number one. I could have been duck. Instead I clicked random. Got a really steep.
Blanc. What the fuck am I looking at?
What the fuck is this desk?
I can see the yarn for your knitting. Why the fuck is there a screen detached from...
There's a Kinder egg.
There is a Kinder... Buddy. Yeah. Yes. Hug. Oh. Whoa. Love you, little man. Okay, buddy. Chloe, I'm going to trust you. I am a Pew Pew, and my name's Woody.
Okay. You what? And you're what?
My name is Woody.
Okay.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hello.
I got it.
There's a snake in my boots.
Oh.
Hey.
There? Damn.
Yeah. Somebody poisoned the water hole.
Yo, what the hell?
I don't get it, but okay. Kill him.
You need to see Toy Story. More,
I've never watched it.
You need to. It's a great film. I'm Sheriff.
Oh.
Sorry. Sorry. You were moving mad.
The dumb sheriff killed themselves with someone else. Yeah. Good job, Buckles. Good job.
Oh no, Buckles is
I
dead.
guess.
Oh
I guess
no.
the snake wasn't only in his boots. I believe.
So yeah.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
So
Fuck
who
does
is
that
voting
mean?
for?
Else.
Well, it was a failed sheriff. Not voting for
This is
anyone.
my first game.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why we should vote Snails. Vote him out.
Oh, if you first
Yeah,
game,
yeah.
you win the game if you vote jellyfish on the top.
Vote
That's how you win the game.
Oh,
This is how you win the game. If you vote
That's
up top.
the gray one.
Yeah, if you vote the person with the horn, the little horn in the corner, you win the game. Just so you know.
I mean, I've played as Among Us before, so.
Yeah. So you vote the top part. Yeah. So there you go, guys. We won. Oh, this is important. Oh, so yeah, so
Let's see what this Russian cunt.
You guys are so smart. Guess what?
Let's go.
Hopefully it's the dodo.
Checkers while I play chess. You play checkers while I play chess, you little shit.
I was ready to vote that and people actually vote you out. That's good.
Where's this salty Russian cunt then? Where is he?
Oh.
Where is he?
I don't
Talking
like
shit. You talking shit, cunt. Why do you care what I look like? You wanna fuck me or what?
Police have died at the bottom.
You wanna get gangbang? You wanna get gangbang?
No.
Don't fucking ready up. I'm talking to you, cunt.
Oh. Yeah, I'm talking to you, cunt.
Spineless
I'm
Russian
talking to you,
cunt.
cunt. What's up?
Spineless.
What are you yelling at me for?
No, I don't know.
I'm scared too. What the fuck?
What a spineless little
I'm talking
cunt.
to you, cunt. I'm talking to you, cunt. What's up? What's up? You want some tea and crumpets?
I can't stand spineless people, you know. He was talking mad shit to me in Dead Talk.
Hi.
In Russian?
Yeah, he was typing. Hey, Gru.
Buckles, what do you have on
Admittedly,
your character?
Pablo, this is a mature lobby.
Hi,
Is it?
guys.
I'm only 12 years old.
I don't have anything.
You look like a pretentious French asshole.
I have no idea.
How are you doing?
Oh, Chloe? Yep, 100%.
Yeah, it's Chloe.
French asshole. Yep.
Yep.
Yep, that's definitely Chloe. Yep. Pretentious French asshole. That's who you are.
I am not like them. I am so sweet.
I am not like them.
I can't even say the word.
Omelette du fromage.
Pretentious. Yes, that's the one. That's the one right there, guys.
No.
Oh, meat beater.
Oh, it's two different names.
Hi.
Hey, beater.
Hi, Diego.
Hey, Diego.
Hi. Hola.
Hi, Diego.
Meat beater. How old are you, meat beater?
He's stinky.
How are you today, guys?
Okay.
Oh
Hey,
my God, me beer, I do that too sometimes.
Hey,
That's
Dio.
crazy.
Dio. Dio.
What dog doesn't?
You can't hide, Dio. I will remove you.
I thought it was Diego.
No, there's a Dio as well.
No, Diego is me. The brown.
Okay. So where the fuck is Dio?
What's happening?
Oh, Dio's over there. I'm dumb.
Right. So for new people, kill people who are AFK. You can kill the gravy whenever you want. Don't be a dick, and don't talk over people in the lobby.
Don't be a dick, Marbera. Don't be a dick. That's what you
Yeah.
are all the time.
He's talking to you, Snails.
No.
Guys, sorry if my English is not good. Guys.
Oh, who's
guys.
playing with spoons and plates?
Where
Who's
are
playing
you
with spoons and
from?
plates? China.
Hello.
What up, Joe?
Sorry if my English is not good. Okay.
No problem. Where
It's okay.
It's amazing.
It's okay. At least you aren't trying to eat your plate like
From
Nightcrawler.
Brazil. From from Brazil.
Brazil. Oh, that's good.
Hey, Nightcrawler, I don't think
Yep,
you can get any
squish
more.
that spoon with a bow. Good
It's done.
shit.
Nightcrawler, it's done.
I love that.
Nightcrawler, there's no more. Okay? Put the spoon down.
Buckles, I could always grab like a fork and make noises too, like
Lit-
start a band.
Don't do it.
Make that sound.
Don't do it.
What you're eating?
Always make that sound.
Eating.
Buckles, we
Yeah.
can start a band. You get some pots and pans. I got a cup.
What?
I will remove them. What the fuck is wrong with people in this game? What is wrong with people? Why am I playing this game?
Why they always like
People just can't eat.
their bowl?
Yeah, they eat their fucking plates. People eat in their plates.
Yeah, why do they always do that? I don't get it.
Okay, I'm touching butts.
Horrible.
I want to touch butts.
Oh, I couldn't help you.
Why? Why though?
I couldn't kill.
Oh, you little fucking rat. I hope I give you the worst shits. I hope I make you sit on the toilet and you've got to squat there for 15 minutes straight. I hope it smells like 11.
I just saw snow.
I hope it smells like 11 when you go. So I hope.
You want Snails to meet you?
Yes.
Up here?
Yes. Hey, Snails.
Hi, Snails.
You little fucking tiny shit. You know that? You little fucker.
She
I
got
was
me.
a party duck, you little cunt.
She got me as well.
I killed Chloe and threw her in the furnace. I cooled down. I was on cooldown. I was on cooldown. I was on cooldown. She was the money duck, Buckles. Chloe gave me some money.
Oh, nice. Get paid. Yeah, she ate me straight away. There was no
God, this
allegiances.
is fucking disgusting in here. It's like rotten and.
Oh.
No!
Meg did work. Meg did work.
I knew my partner was a bad person.
Fucking bitch.
I love you so much, Chloe. I love you. Mwah. Mwah,
No
Chloe.
way,
Thank you for the money,
bro.
Chloe.
Oh my God.
Thank you for the money, Chloe.
No
Thank
way,
you.
bro.
I needed some cash.
Hell.
I needed some money, Chloe. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chloe.
Sorry, but I am the
I
bad
love
person.
when Cielo like ate you. Right
Bro,
away.
what?
And right away she ate
How
you.
you win? How you? What?
Yeah?
What you win? How you win?
Chailey.
You win.
Because she was pigeon.
No,
Cha-
no, I know, but
Chailey.
I don't see him.
Chailey.
Oh, hi,
Right.
Chicky.
Chailey.
No, I didn't know.
What were you about?
Like
Huh?
you sneezed on him and he didn't.
I
see
was
you.
waiting for you to make one.
No,
I was
because
waiting
I
for
don't
you
see
to
him.
make
Naughty.
You're welcome, Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Hello, Naughty.
Everyone's good.
Oh, that's a name.
Yeah.
That's a name. That's
Douglas.
My name is Buckles, my friend.
It's me. It's Mia.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
That's okay.
If I wanted
Sorry,
to spell
Steve.
Maya, I love that Y there.
You are so beautiful.
Yay! Snails left.
Thanks.
Your hair is beautiful. Your hair is beautiful.
I'm just wondering if it's the Mia I know.
I like your hair.
Like the accent that we use for that dating game?
Mia, do I know you?
I don't know.
Can I
don't play
can I
at all
smell
with
your
Maya.
hair? Can I smell your hair?
Yeah, do it. Fill your boots.
Ew.
Why
Look, I have the
you?
same pants.
It is pretty hair.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be back in a
Just
minute.
like you. You're just like
It's
you.
just me.
It's gonna be a clean sheet real quick. Been a lot.
Buckles, I hate that name is so common on this game.
I hate his name. I hate his name.
Right, mic check. Momo.
No, I'm still bobbing.
Oh,
Hey, what's up?
Goodbye, Momo.
Sorry. Scoop.
Oh who? Oh
Okay,
who?
I'm back.
How who?
Someone knocked on the door.
Oh,
Tony.
you scared them. How
Tony
dare you?
Truand. Tony Truand.
When does
Yup.
the game start?
Rubber duck.
Marabobara.
Rubber duck.
Marabobara.
They're gonna leave. They're gonna leave.
Can
Rubber
you
duck.
ready up, sir? You ready up?
Marabobara.
Rubber duck.
I am ready.
Can you ready up,
I am
Nightcrawler?
ready up.
Wait. Shush. Shush.
Are you sure?
I'm doing mic checks. This game won't start until I check everyone's mic.
You're not. No, you're what?
Hello, Rubber Duck.
I'm confused.
Mike. Yep.
Malbara.
I got a mic.
Cool.
Malrab.
Did I miss anyone?
Your
Who's this
name
fucker? Who's Red?
confused.
Red, who are you?
My name what?
Your nickname is confused.
Chloe.
Yeah, you can
Hello.
just call me Mara.
Oh, we have two Chloes. Oh.
Yeah.
Marabara.
You can just call me Mara. You don't have to say it full name.
This is so
You
strange.
can call Mara Daddy as well. That's her other name.
No, you don't
Mara
have to call me
Daddy.
that.
Yeah, call her daddy.
Yeah, call her Daddy. Daddy is a good name.
Okay, I call her that.
That's not my name.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
Mara.
Daddy. Yeah.
Okay, I call that.
Daddy Mara.
I don't know.
Yeah, I like it.
I can see Snails corrupting Diego.
Yeah, call her Daddy. Oh, she likes the Spanish one. Call her Papi. Call her Papi.
Snail, I'm killing you first. I'm killing
You
you
almost
first.
español, but yo hablo
Daddy.
español, mas it's
Yeah, Daddy, don't kill me, Daddy. Daddy, please don't kill me, Daddy. Don't do this.
Daddy, don't kill me, Daddy. Daddy, I will leave you every.
Whoever kills me is my new daddy.
You guys are gonna make me disappear for another 2 years.
Man, this is so strange.
Yeah, you're gonna be fucking with like 5 kids and a whole family by the time you come back.
Exactly.
I
I'm
don't
gonna disappear
want.
for another 2 goddamn years.
Don't kill me, Daddy, Mama
So, oh, Daddy's gonna leave to get some milk? Oh my god,
Sorry,
bye,
my bad,
Daddy.
my bad. Last time.
Bye, Daddy.
My bad.
Everyone's so loud. Hi. Hi there. How do I do the poo? Oh, I did it! Yeah! Hello there.
That's not okay. You don't eat people like that.
She.
But it's fun. No, Mega. No. You don't. That's not okay, Mega.
What are you doing?
Just get away from me.
Why are you eating people? Oh, Maggie's ass! Maggie's ass! Maggie's ass! Why'd you kill that person? Oh, is she gonna win? Are you gonna win? You gonna win? Quick, eat that! Nom. Follow me for a win. Oh.
This body was down in the auditorium. I didn't see anybody else.
And you didn't let Meg eat it? You didn't let Meg eat it?
Wait,
oh yeah, Meg is a vulture.
Jellyfish.
They told me they were.
You.
They told me they were lovers.
Oh.
Science.
Ooh.
I guess
I'm voting snails just because I want to.
That's free will. That's free will.
I'm voting snails.
Jellyfish. Did you come?
Why? Because you're my daddy now?
Yeah.
Jellyfish.
And then they told me they were lovers.
Can I speak?
Yeah.
Jellyfish. Did you come from the auditorium? Because I see you from there.
Said yes. Before I left them, they told me they were lovers. And they were still alive back then.
Hey, we're lover boys. Shabba.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Kill them.
Bye, Nightcrawler.
On that
I love you.
Why is that? What?
Why did I get voted?
Wow.
What is this bullshit?
Wow, what happened?
I don't know.
What happened?
That was not.
Where's Meg?
Why is Jenna voted?
I don't know why he got voted.
But
Meg, 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 Meg. Where is the Meg? Where is the Meg? Where is the Meg? Oh, Meg, oh, Meg, Meg. There's Meg. Hey, Meg, 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 Meg.
What?
Come back, come back. You want to eat? You want to eat something? You want to eat?
No.
I'll make you food. I'm a good cook. See, look, French. Look, you can eat French.
Yeah, how dare they? Yeah, go Vulture!
I
Yeah,
didn't kill
yeah.
anyone.
Jellyfish. You
What?
you kill them.
No, I didn't kill anyone. The whole game, I didn't kill anyone.
I gave the
Yeah, I keep voting me for no reason. I'm gonna
knew
pick
it.
Digi and start head something. Just let you know.
I gave
One
the
second. One second. One question. Why snails by kicking? By voting.
What?
My bad.
I have no idea why.
Cause they hate me. They hate me. That's why. Cause I'm a real girl. That's why. They're jealous.
Yeah, you're the
No,
best girls.
Yeah, they're
we
jealous that
love
I'm
you. We
beautiful.
love you.
Yeah,
We
they're
love you.
jealous. They're
You're
so jealous.
beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Say some
I
other
am
good
Can I
beautiful.
see your toy
Batot.
in your?
Yeah, you can
hand?
see my toy vibrates.
Batot.
Oh.
It's a beautiful toy.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful toy.
thank you, sir.
Oh, hey,
Thank
Thank you, sir.
Batot, are you there?
You're a beautiful man.
Hey, Batot. Batot.
Beto.
Batot, are
The
you there?
smell is
Hey.
great.
Okay, he's getting kicked.
Yeah, I am great. You're right.
No, the toy.
Oh, that toy. Yeah, the toy is great too.
You too. You too.
Oh, hey, Michael.
Yeah.
Michael.
Oh my God, it's Kermit.
Kermit the Frog, that's
Yeah.
me. Hey, come here, Michael. Just checking you, Mike. Hey, Pineapple. Pineapple?
Mara. You're.
Don't talk to her. She's mean.
You don't play.
Fuck you, snails. I'll play the next round. Give me a second.
Pineapple?
Can you rate up snails?
Sorry with the daddy.
Pineapple?
Should I?
Pineapple?
Sorry.
Do not call me daddy, call me Mora.
Pineapple.
Copy.
Sorry.
Ludmilla.
Oh wow, there's
Call
a
me
lot of
daddy either.
different.
Ludmilla?
Call her daddy.
Oh.
You there? You got your hand in a jar?
For a killed or swallowed.
What?
Call her.
Wait. Hang on. Wait. I need to mic check people. Shut the fuck up.
That was weird.
Okay.
Right. Ludmilla. Hello.
Actually, I can't hear you.
Chichi.
I don't know.
Good enough.
Last game, I don't think it
Good
was
enough.
the person who was like.
Science.
There was someone I missed. I swear, if you guys keep speaking in lobby when I'm mic checking people, I'm gonna fucking go mental.
I not know the game. I'm number 7.
Just okay.
I like
You
this.
got
This is karma.
Science. You like Do you like the magic? Do you like
Yeah,
the
I love magic. You gonna show me some magic?
You love magic? Yeah.
You want to see magic trick?
No.
Yes, I do.
I'll make you all disappear in a
No,
minute.
because I am the best magicer.
Yeah, you are the
Yeah.
best magic. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm gonna make people disappear.
Scary.
Make them disappear.
You're really good at magic, Knuckles. That's some good magic right there, buddy.
Disappear. Kick the person.
Oh my
All,
gosh.
all the
yes,
people that
that's
keep talking over me are gonna get kicked. Did it wrong.
Hi.
Up to it.
Okay. Have two bodies in the dungeon. I think it's the sheriff. I don't know. I think it's sheriff because
I don't think so.
Buckless and Nightcrawler. It's In the
Like
dungeon.
Crora said they have a yellow thingy on her corner. So I
Where
think
do
she's
you-
either
That's
serial
unfair.
killers or something.
Yeah. Me and Plank and
Little bit of cheating there.
I think we
Just
we were
telling it on
together
pigeon.
all the time.
Woo!
Yeah, I can say Blank and Michael.
I didn't
And
see
Michelle.
jellyfish, but I was doing the mouse task, so I didn't see anyone. I just noticed Michael was.
So
I was in the
what do you
bucket.
think?
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
Was that what
skip
was
or
that?
jellyfish? I don't know.
I was in the bucket.
Yeah.
Diego.
Ah,
was
okay,
like,
okay. No, I skip. I skip.
I was like,
So it's
"See,
either Mega or
espresso,
Luke.
something."
I don't know.
Red
I'm
party.
stop
Oh, Mega,
pressure.
your party.
Someone pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's It's Lumina. It has to be Lumina then. The Lumina?
Ludmilla.
Skinny Legend. You ain't got shit to do now. I will say though.
Yeah, that mofo killed us and said it was Sheriff.
Wait, can you guys hear me? I'm dead. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
can't.
I'm dead too. Michael just died too.
So the other dead people. Okay.
In the game, they can't hear you, but the dead people can.
Gotcha.
That bitch killed me.
Why am I naked?
Because you're poor.
Where'd my shirt go? Teeth are cold.
No, I was trying to kill you
That's
first.
right
Oh my
now.
god. I was
Feel
hitting space.
so close to you right
I
now.
was hitting space. But I want to
Be
kill.
free.
I've seen her.
What's this? Can I go in here?
Oh, Diego's about to die.
Never stress.
Diego's about to die.
I was soldier. I had enough tasks. I wanted to kill Ludmilla.
What? All three of them? Is there 3 ducks? There isn't. It's not enough of us. Ah, Chloe's the last kill again.
Okay, we won, guys. We ate, we cooked, Mega Music cooked.
Nah, you didn't win. You're not a duck. The ducks won, not the lovers.
I was good, okay?
No.
1 second.
You don't get that. Right, I get every.
Ludmilla.
Right, Diego.
Mega Music.
Diego.
Mega Music. You are lover with Ludmilla.
Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk less, brother.
When y'all said lovers earlier, I thought you guys meant like
What?
homosexual, not like a role in the game.
Can you repeat?
I said talk less. Let other people talk. And when the lobby host is addressing people, listen.
Okay.
Smeagol.
Yes.
Hello.
What the fuck?
You stupid fat hobbit. Sorry. It just comes out sometimes.
His name is. Your voice, it's perfect.
Yeah. That was him. Yeah.
Your voice is.
That was him. That was totally him.
Basically, Ludmilla was a sniper in the Soviet Union.
Ah, that's a cool name. I hope you get the sniper role.
Oh, you have to give him actual money for those?
You can get it with in-game currency too.
Ludmilla Pro because in Brazil.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Ludmilla so much. She's like.
Oh, that's nice.
In Brazil, she's like so much Ludmilla.
Luna. Hello. Just making sure you got a mic.
I'm gonna tell you my age.
No, I was making sure.
Yeah.
Are you 13?
I'm 18. I'm 18.
One question. I don't remember, but have a gravy. Gravy.
Ludmilla, you say you're 13?
We have a gravy here.
Guys, what does the sheriff do?
It kills ducks and neutrals. If you kill a goose, you die with it. need to shut that fucking Diego up.
I don't wanna be killed here right now.
Lud,
Oh, Mr.
Ludmilla, did you say you were 13?
17 group, so we don't get
What
killed.
did I say?
Did you say you were 13?
No.
What?
Sounded.
I
It
said
sound.
I'm number 14. Or
Oh,
I'm
how old are you then?
I mean that, guys. I'm 19.
Okay, cool. Whew.
Oh, okay.
I think, yeah.
Hello.
Stay with me.
Oh.
Stay with me.
So let's go there.
I don't know.
Oh, you two lovers?
That's no, we're not. Let's make a mistake. Come on, let's go there. Let's ask can we stay. Can you take me higher? Ah, Smeagol, your mother's got a wretched cunt. Wretched. Yeah, the British are coming. Yes. Yes, the British. Your mother's got cum in her belly button.
Stop talking rubbish, darling.
Stop talking poppycock. Hang on, guys. I'm going to slide out.
Let's move at the same time, okay? Stop, guys. Stop.
Yeah, let's move.
Okay.
Dun, 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 dun. Rule Britannia, Britannia's ways.
The waves.
Oh god, I got to finish tasks. I got to do a task.
I need to protect you.
Okay, I'm just doing my
I've
cards.
got this one too.
Oh.
I find Mara's dead body above the storage.
It's you.
I didn't see anybody.
And where was the body?
3 people at once.
Above
Where
storage
was the body?
in the hallway.
Above storage.
Michael.
Did anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we hear
I
you.
saw y'all
Michael.
because I was a ghost.
Oh,
I'm Astral. I'm Astral.
What?
who did you see?
That's unbelievable.
Who did you
Sounds
see?
like a kid.
I'm Astral.
You threw an accusation to people to like. I know that.
Fish, Shell, and Diego. Because they're
Yeah,
not
it's not.
near that area.
Yeah. One question, Michael. Did you
Marco.
from
Then
there?
what?
Because
Then what?
we and
We were in group,
no.
moving together. What the shit?
Let him speak.
No,
Doesn't,
nothing.
Like, ask
Nothing.
it,
Literally
ask his
outside.
question.
That's
In
unbelievable.
my house. Lying on my
What?
couch.
That's
Anyway.
unfair. I see.
Don't worry, Diego. Don't worry.
First warning: talking over people, I'll just remove you. Cool.
What?
Mike etiquette, or get the fuck out. I'm about to kick motherfuckers. Oh, hello.
That was good timing.
It was.
I must protect you.
Protect me.
I've lost track of this card.
It's because you're you. Got it in
I
one.
need to see this again. I did it well the first time. I did
But
it
Where is
yucky.
it? Where is it? Where is it?
But yucky.
I'll be 30 seconds.
30 seconds is way too long.
I'm done.
Okay, let's go. We need to find some stuff to feed it. Oh, he's been fed. He's been. Oh. Oh, there's a book.
Nice.
Dun, 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 dun. In memory of Honey.
What?
In memory of my friend Honey, aka Gangster on the server. Or You got to change the name to Honey again. She used to walk around the whole map like this. Is that you?
Slide.
Did you just appear? Did I summon you? I think I just summoned her. That's crazy. I just literally spoke about it and she just appeared in Twitch. Hey, Hans. I've got to put books away.
You tell me your role. Tell me
Me.
your role.
Tainton's
I
precious.
want to know your role. I will start on.
Oh, kill Michael! Kill Michael! Kill Michael! Kill Michael! Kill Michael! Kill Michael!
What the fuck?
Kill Michael! Kill Michael!
It's Michael?
Kill him!
Michael is you?
He killed Meg! Ah.
Okay, the body from the frog cave, and 1 second, Nightcrawler, it's talking alone. I think he was the pelican.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, I'm just
it's Michael.
streaming, but okay, sure.
Oh.
I don't know what that means.
Sorry, my bad.
No worries, no worries.
Oh.
I was literally haunting people, bro, as a ghost. And no one even
Hi,
heard me.
people.
Did someone hear me, bro?
Yeah, we hear you.
Talk to people as astral when you're in the astral
I
state.
didn't even do anything to you, dude. Jellyfish.
Okay, we know
talk too
it's
much.
Michael. Mikhail, no, Michael.
Yeah, what's with Michael?
Michael.
You
fuck.
buckles.
You kill, bro. You
What
kill,
did you
you
guys
kill,
do?
no?
I don't
You
even know what that does. What is
You know what?
I gotta look it up.
I know what.
Nego?
I know what.
The
You
last
never thought-
survivor.
Yeah.
Until the meeting is called. Oh.
Let's go. Okay. Bro.
Are you like for real?
You're cute. Oh my god.
But
I was screaming to Lynn. I said, Michael! Kill Michael! Because he ate Meg. I was like, kill him! Kill him!
Canadian.
It's
So
Michael. Michael and it's Michael and Smeagol. Smeagol killed me and Michael ate Meg.
Who
And
killed
Michael
you?
is the pelican.
At least I can do my tasks now, I guess.
Wow.
Gangster. A lot of people duck.
A lot of people.
Yeah. You'll never get this.
I had to do it.
If that's Smeagol took. No, it's not. It's Michael.
Don't be mad at me. I had to.
I got spat on!
Welcome.
I'm probably not going.
No, please don't tell me. It was my rule.
Come on, like 17 seconds. Oh, I'm not going to get lucky.
Michael, bro.
All the time, I could be protected in my stomach. You all were protected in my stomach. So you're safe.
You're that. So you're
I
that.
was protecting you.
Okay, Mikhail is dead. Smeagol is sus. Jellyfish is not sus. I think it's Luna. Luna, why you are in the
I'm
sacrifice altar?
astral, dude. Dude, I'm astral.
You're right.
Literally,
forget.
bro, just let me just shut
Where-
up. But
where
now
they
she
been, though?
says that I'm the astral, so she believes me that I'm the
forget.
astral.
My bad. I forget.
It's not
Where's
me.
Luna been the entire
Jellyfish
time, though?
said that I was astral, and I am.
So, it's Smeagol. What's your role?
Where's Luna been the entire time, though? I've seen everybody else but Luna.
So
I don't
Luna,
think it's
she was
Luna.
trying to fix the saboteur. Miko, you are the only one not there. If
No,
it's
I got
Smeagol,
well. I
guys.
couldn't find my way through that hellhole. Bro, I was trying to go there, but then I went to the wrong area.
Okay.
Both ways.
Jellyfish, it's you. I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna
How
cry.
many times do I need to tell you I'm the
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
It's
I
me.
don't know. Ah, okay, okay. My bad, my bad.
Did we
Sorry,
win?
sorry.
Yes! We won.
I don't know how I got away with killing
I
Buckles.
told
I
you
do
I
not
was
know how I got away with killing
Astro.
Buckles.
I told you I was Astro.
Okay,
I
well,
was
I'm
still
Buckles,
sorry.
I don't know how I got
At
away with
least
killing
I
you.
didn't die.
It's because I was screaming, kill Michael, because he ate Meg.
Michael, it's
I
Michael.
had
Michael.
to kill you
because
Before you kill
Michael.
Oh, Michael was Pelican, by the way.
Yeah, he was.
I
He
killed
ate
him,
Meg.
and then I
but
killed Nightcrawler.
Michael,
Michael
Wait, I gotta
Michael killed
Michael,
and
Michael.
then
I gotta look up.
Yeah, you're fine, mate.
talk to him after.
Yeah, I'm on
after
my
you talk
computer
to
now,
him.
Buckles. Yeah, I can do this now.
Okay, guys, let's
Oh.
go.
Yeah.
Bird.
Oh my God, it's Diego.
Voted
Hi.
out. The other doo-doo dies to
Hi. We
Oh my God, it's
won.
Daddy.
eating corpses
Yeah,
to
it's
win.
jellyfish. That's
Oh
why
my
it's
God, it's
Smara.
too
Demon.
calm when
Oh my
Snails
God,
wasn't here. It was
Oh my
too
God, it's a
calm.
COVID. Oh my God.
I wish to address
You
everybody.
cannot disguise, right?
It's more than
Just
Daddy.
I got
you're
the people
making
that I
that
don't
up.
see.
Oh my God, it's black.
Black.
Black,
Oh!
black, no. It's bad. It's bad. This is bad. No, 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 no.
Racism. Big
Come on.
racism.
And so,
Ben.
can someone say gas man because
Long time no see.
Oh my gosh, you're blue. My gosh.
What is
Oh my
it?
God.
I'm,
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh
I'm
my God.
red.
Oh my gosh, my gosh.
I'm black.
My lord.
Blue.
Yes, man.
Wait.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, they don't have the pansexual shit.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello.
Did you get that
Highly
in
discriminative.
the mail that I sent you?
Sorry, mate.
Oh my
Hey,
gosh.
howdy.
She's bull. She's bull and she's.
No, I didn't. Hello?
Okay.
Who's bald?
He
Who's
spoke
bald?
earlier. He said hello.
No one, no one.
What, hello spoke?
Siriniti opposite standing. Siriniti opposite running around. Sirin is a wonderful thing to do.
Oh, this is the cool corner. What are we doing in this corner right here?
Everyone shush. Shush, 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 shush. I'm pretty no tolerance. If you talk over the people in lobbies, I'll ask you once and I'll just remove you. Kill the gravy, kill AFK people, I don't care. Just Tala, what the fuck? Do you have a mic?
Yeah, what?
Your name hurt my brain.
I have a microphone.
Yeah, your
What
name.
does gravy mean?
Gravy meat, it's a roll. Gravy is a roll. If you kill it, you get more coins. So you want to kill it because you want outfits.
Oh, okay, okay. I see, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still reading up.
I'm
Thank you. I'm still reading up on the for the rolls.
Oh yeah.
You guys have number 16.
Hey, howdy. Schmowdy, wowdy, bowdy.
Number 22.
You guys have number 1.
Random.
Number 7.
I was number 1. I was number 1.
Number 6.
Like hoarding cats.
Bonking me.
Buck.
Pelican, Atleta, bit.
Number 13. He didn't know he was going for the tremor.
100.
I know you number 9. Don't lie.
Number 9.
Guys. Stop.
Didn't know. He was a lover.
He didn't know that number 7 was a lover.
Lover.
We know.
Number 7
Love
is
me.
Number 7 is a pigeon. We love
Yeah.
pigeon, but
Number 7's a pedo.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Just got real.
number 7 is a pigeon.
It's a pedo.
Number 7's a pedo.
A pigeon. The pigeon.
Yeah, mate. I am hydrated. I was singing higher earlier when I was being protected. Can you push the door ajar, my man? Thank you, bud. I will eat everyone on behalf of honey. I will say, yummy, yummy, yummy. I eat you for honey. That's what I'm going to say. Yummy, 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 I eat you for honey. I feel like numbing you. Hey, Pons.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh!
What? Tá. Ok. Vamos lá. Jellyfish killed
I was about to drink my mic.
Mega Mute or snails. I don't know.
Yeah, I went to pick my mic up to drink it.
Jellyfish, and then he was the imposter. And that's it. He was the imposter.
So
Jellyfish is
where
usually the
the-
duck. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in
Usually,
the
every time.
auditorium.
Did she kill snails by any chance?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I
Because-
saw Diego and Snails together, and yeah.
Yeah. And jellyfish, I see kill snails.
Yeah.
Then I
Mhm.
kill jellyfish. In that's it.
Oh.
Okay.
That checks out. I mean, what happened to Meg?
I think I'm.
So guys, what we doing? Keep.
Skip. Yeah, skip.
Skip.
Okay.
Jellyfish
Because I
killed
think,
snails.
yeah.
Snails. Jelly got killed by Diego.
I think the jellyfish is a professional because when I killed her, I report.
That means you're professional.
So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand. No, I understand. She was professional. Okay, you reported snails.
Okay.
I'm with you.
So
I'm
he
with
was
you.
Canadian.
No.
Diego do the self-report.
Diego's good. Diego's good.
I'm fat. I'm fat.
He's goose. I'm not.
I am so fucking wet right now.
I'm so fucking wet right now. Oh. Yeah. Be free. Be free. Yeah, pigeons. Be free. Oh, gotta feed Yucky. Gotta feed him. Hey, Nightcrawler. Hey, Diego.
No.
Don't stand. Why are you screaming?
Thank God.
We have to go feed Yucky. Why are you screaming? Feed the thing. Gotta go feed him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eat some noodles. Like, he's at
I
noodles.
don't have food.
Why do you got no food?
I don't. I think it's awesome. Where?
Oh.
Hi.
Hello there. Hello there.
Well, locked.
Okay.
Wait, oh. Okay.
Yeah, freedom!
Get out.
Freedom!
Together once we know where.
Picture. Buddy mode engaged.
I don't believe.
I didn't do it. I didn't do anything. 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 Don't you press that button. Don't you kill him. Don't you press that button and kill him. Don't you press that button.
Kill him. Kill him. Kill him. No.
Oh, we gotta go feed Yucky. We gotta feed Yucky. We gotta go feed Yucky.
You're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna laugh. You'll laugh.
There's noodles. There's noodles. Oh no.
You're gonna laugh, and then we're gonna kill you. We don't, but somebody kill you. No. Just telling now.
Fuck button.
I want to kill them, but it's eat me. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you.
I've gave him two. I've gave him two. I've gave him
Kill
two.
that guy, please. Somebody kill that guy.
Kill them.
How many
kill
is
them,
it?
kill
Oh,
them.
thank God for that. Thank God for that.
We're gonna die.
So let's go there. Let's make a mistake. Come on, let's go there. Hey, do you want a triplet? Do you want a friend? Do you two want a friend? Oh.
This fucking pelican. Why did you eat Diego in front of me? Why? Diego.
Where was the body?
Oh, not Diego. I did the
Where was the body?
Nobody. It was in your tummy, the body.
Nah, that's not me. I'm not
No,
that person.
no, not you.
I would have eaten Blanc. I would have eaten Blanc straight up.
Yeah.
I would have.
I saw him like eating Diego, and he was like, "Oh no, it wasn't me."
Nah, I would have eaten Blanc.
It wasn't me, no.
So I don't know what's happening, so I'm gonna skip.
I know. I made it. That's
I'm
why
skipping.
voting.
I'm skipping.
Oh, no
Nightcrawler.
way, you're skipping.
Nightcrawler, you skipped, right?
No way. No way, no way.
Skip, right?
What? Who voted?
Fucking.
What did I do?
You fucking
I thought
rat.
it was Blanc.
You fucking bunch of rats.
Yeah, I am a rat.
I just wanted to skip.
I'm Ratatouille.
You, Sai, I love you. I love you. I love you.
Oh, I killed the two
Say
people.
it, bro.
I killed two people who could kill me.
I got so
Three
scared.
imposters die in one round. I killed Jellyfish and the other imposter died.
Yeah, I
Oh,
killed
wow.
Mega's
Yeah.
lover.
I see you. You kill my
Jellyfish
friend.
killed snails that killed me, and then you killed jellyfish.
Yeah, see?
Then I killed Jellyfish.
See, I was right.
Jellyfish
I
kills
get
snails,
Fiji,
then
and I get
we'll
sheriff.
die.
I didn't pay attention. We have lover.
I'm killing fishes tonight.
Don't.
Wow.
So that's
I'm
that's
gonna
too
eat
many
fish
targets. but
tonight.
that happens.
Don't kill my friend. Okay?
Yeah, don't kill me.
I kill all friends.
No,
Fucking
you
hope
don't
I don't have a
supposed to. You don't supposed to say that.
I like to
Oh.
kill.
yeah.
Stab, stab.
You're not supposed to. Yeah, don't kill my friend too. No,
I'm gonna
don't kill me.
I'm gonna cure COVID.
Hey, Diego.
Hi.
Duck, say what?
What?
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
No, I don't understand this. I don't speak.
I said, a duck says what? And you were like, what?
No. I'm
And
gonna
like,
die.
so you're the
Yeah, but
bad
where you
guy.
from? You
You're
sound
the
really
bad
American.
guy.
What the fuck does a scientist
I'm
do?
from Brazil.
He's Brasilia.
I thought you were American with that
What?
accent. That's crazy.
American with that accent, Snails. What the fuck? What do I have to do? What the fuck does science? Oh, maybe I should actually look. How do I look at my role? What does a scientist do? What is it?
What does the
What?
scientist do?
Yeah.
No, fuck you, snails. Wait, hold on, I don't even know. Wait, I gotta look.
I think I can like see bodies, can't I?
You scan for okay, so you can basically like find dead bodies. Yeah, you see.
Ah, okay. There's no dead bodies yet.
So how'd I do this?
Like that. I can't believe you said he sounded American.
I was trolling.
I'm still gonna do this task.
I thought I was in here, guys.
I'm just watching Mara Bobara do that sab.
I am doing that.
I have the same. I have that task. Mara, I have that task.
Double kill. No. Shut up.
I have that.
She's doing.
Yeah, I have that task.
Right now, doing that.
Oh, there's a dead body. There's a dead body. There's a dead body. There's a dead body. Come with me. See, I told you.
Oh, the sniper got Mega. They're from the right, and the only person come from the right is Nightcrawler.
Sorry, I'm just still trying to learn the map.
Yeah, I don't think she's the.
Did you see a big target?
Her here.
Shoot people.
Yeah, me
Learning
and
the map.
Shishel, we was trying to run away, and I guess Mega got it.
Did you two trip her up?
Nightcrawler.
You trip her up so she got shot.
I can clear Shishel.
I can clear everyone apart from Nightcrawler.
I have shield.
I'm just gonna.
Snails is clear, guys. I saw him do medbay scan.
Yeah, everyone apart from Nightcrawler and you two. And if you two can clear each other. That means it's Nightcrawler, right?
Imposter.
It's not the sniper.
Imposters, vigilante,
Anybody
sheriff.
got party?
I'm Nerf.
No.
And everyone
Yeah.
just talk a bit.
No.
Okay, what?
6-7.
Oh, you fucking you make me hate you.
I'm voting snails.
If I could vote again,
Okay.
if I could vote again,
Vote nails. Vote
if I
nails.
could vote again.
Nails. Don't say that. Never. Never.
Is
I
this
could vote
guy-
again. He's gone. He's gone. He's gone.
He's
I don't even
Dodo.
care
No.
if you're Dodo. That's the worst
This
thing
is
I've
Dodo.
always said.
He's Dodo.
I was the worst thing.
Okay.
Oh, it wasn't Dodo. Okay.
Hi, Lucas.
Hello. I have a task here, and I'm not going to do it because it looks like a sabotage.
Hold on, dude.
I'm not going to do that task.
Are we doing a sabotage?
No, I don't want to do the task because it'll make me look like I'm doing a sabotage. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, where's the light? Where's the light? Where's the light? Oh, hey. Hey, darling.
Hey.
Hello? There's a dead body. There's a dead body up. There's a dead body. Let's go get it. Let's go get it.
I know.
What do you mean you know?
See, I said repeatedly, I said I would shoot him if he came near me. He continued to follow me for a good 10 to 15 seconds, so I shot him.
Can confirm there was a dead body very close to me as well. Oh,
I told him not to follow
Chloe.
me.
Someone killed Chloe. Someone killed Sishal.
Oh.
And someone killed just Hala. 3 deaths.
I killed Nightcrawler. I'm the VG. I assassin them last round. That's why I took care of it.
Yeah.
I'm the sheriff.
They are in the foggy cave.
I actually don't believe her.
Oh, and they were bad. They were bad because I'm sheriff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I don't believe Jellyfish whatsoever, but I'm not going to vote her because I have no proof.
Oh my god.
I am the VG.
I don't believe.
Because
I was asking them like.
then Diego's duck.
The road.
Then Diego's duck. If you're Vigi, Diego's duck. I'm scientist.
What? No.
Then you should vote him then.
Yeah, if Mara's sheriff, you're Vigi, that means he's duck.
Why?
Because you're duck.
We all know each other's role now.
Because you're duck, Diego.
That's why.
Brother.
Oh, that's...
You're duck, brother.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we won.
Oh, she was the sniper. See?
Oh wow. I really thought she wasn't.
My brain then, when I realised everyone said their roles apart from Diego.
I can just pick Dodo every time and see.
You do, mate. You do.
Nails.
Hello,
Don't
guys.
say it. Never. Never. Never.
Hello, Doc Torm. Oh God, I hate your name. I hate your name, Doc. Doctor.
Hello. 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 What's up to you?
Hello there.
Bro, are you really the streamer? Bro, are you really the streamer Tim Tio, bro?
Yes, yes.
Aren't you our famous meme?
Oh, that's a really easy kick.
Can I get your Discord?
There's one. Where's the other ones? There's 2. And there's 3.
Oh, I need to shut off the party.
There's 4.
That's annoying.
There's 4. Hey, Booty.
Why? How?
Booty?
How should you know I am the imposter?
Because we knew everyone's roles.
He uses brain meat.
Yeah, I use my grey matter.
Yeah.
Hey, it's
don't
funny.
like this.
It's funny, fan.
Hello.
You sound. You sound. Why do you sound familiar?
Told me.
Yeah. Speak again.
It sounded like. It sounded like PP, but I don't think it is.
Hello. It sounds like he told me.
It did sound like it.
Hello.
Sound like
Are you
PP.
who told me?
Last week was the hardest. I'll admit that. The house felt expecting to
Are
hear
you
the
Asian?
voice.
I don't want to watch that, Chop. So you're gone.
Alright. That's a great question.
It's a good question.
Who said that's a great question? That killed me. That killed
That's a
me.
great
It's a good
question.
question.
That killed me.
It's a good question.
Diogenes. Diogenes.
What?
Dio?
Diogenes. Diogenes. Diogenes.
Diogenes. Yeah, you're more English than me.
Diogenes.
So, do you have people on your friends list that are like,
Booty.
Melancholy?
Booty.
shocked?
Hey folks, do you play this game tablet or
No, 'cause I see
PC?
Ipan, I see
I play on PC.
Snowball's on.
What?
I'm on PC.
I am
because
also on
it's
PC.
easier.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm on PC too. PC love for life. PC. Yeah. I play PC.
Last
all the
word.
time.
Last word. Dale.
What? What happened? What happened, bro?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
I've got to resize this.
Okay, we're
Don't
also
need
adding someone to
no
the.
Say it.
education.
Stop trying to make.
We don't need
But
no
we for your
control.
We do need control. I am control.
I want the window to.
Okay. I tried.
I'm gonna sneeze, and none of you can
You have
stop
to
me.
call her daddy.
Please no. Please no.
That's how you translate Moribo Bar in English. It actually translates to daddy.
That's not. That's not. That's not. That's not. That's not a thing. That's not a thing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, it's just daddy in English.
It's
Yeah.
not.
In my language, marabua.
Oh, I wish Howdy was playing. Not even watching now. Take that back. Hello there. Hello there.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. I feel.
Okay.
Hi. Saying what?
What's your role?
I'm gonna let you have your moment.
What's your
Why are you
role?
asking?
Because I want to fucking know,
Why are you
obviously.
asking?
Because I want to fucking know, and I don't want to shoot you for no reason.
I'm the sheriff.
Oh, I'm Vigi. Oh, hold my hand.
Oh, let's go.
Hold my wing. Let's go. Let's go.
Who do you think we should try, Snails?
I'm not gonna shoot snails. Let's snap it.
I failed my job.
Snails.
Mega just killed my client right in front of me. I failed my job.
Who was your client?
Mega killed. Mega
Alla was my
what?
client. Mega just killed Alla.
Ah. So what happened to Blanc and Snails?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pelican?
I don't deserve to live. My job is. I don't have a job anymore. I'm just a goose now.
I have a feeling that
Wait, so what does left shift do on the keyboard when you?
it depends what role you are. What role are you, Crawler? Oh.
Mega, I think Mega's the hitman though.
Yeah. Mega.
That O has killed me.
Bye, Mega.
Oh. Hey Meg, what do you say in your defense?
I think Nightcrawler might be the silencer.
The silence.
That's just me, but.
Very
What's
silent.
Shell? You got
The
silence?
best word. Silence is the
Oh.
best word.
I think Seychelle is the pelican. So I think.
Oh.
Wait, why did I get voted?
I don't trust talk with everybody.
Goodbye, Megan.
It might be
The
Diego.
silence is the best.
I got a feeling
Not
it's.
even me.
Yes, wait, she's gaslighted me. This her being sheriff. See you, Seychelle. I see you. I see you. Oh God. I don't like this. 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 Do what? Oh. I was like, you gonna kill me!
Oh no, I'm gonna light the fucking candle! Quick!
This is for you.
Aw, what do I have? Oh, popcorn!
I have love puffs. Mine are love puffs.
Ah. We need to. But who's that?
I mean,
we need to wait
I-
for Nightcrawler here.
Why do you think it's her? Do you think she's?
Or Diego. Oh, let's go. Need to find them.
I don't want to accidentally kill you either.
Ah.
Hello. Oh! Let me get him. Let me get him. Yeah. Yeah. Fuck you, Pelican.
What's the purpose of that?
The fucking
No,
Pelican ate me in the first 5 seconds
No
of the
way.
game.
I'm sad. No way.
Yo, I can't breathe for 5 seconds of the game.
I think Marabobara is alone. No. I should speak.
I was not alone.
That was funny.
Yeah. I see it.
I
see it.
I gotta go.
Like, great.
See you later, Blonky.
Yeah.
Nails.
Bye,
Nails.
She was
Bye,
Dodo.
And everybody.
She was Dodo.
Nails.
Wow.
You.
Yes.
It's part
You
of
killed
me
me
now.
too much.
You Latinas are getting too close. You Latinas are getting too close.
Let's go.
And soy yo un puta.
Yo te quiero mucho, papi.
He just broke his brain and turned him on at the same time.
I know, right? Silence after that.
I met up with Jellyfish and I was like, I don't want to kill you. She's like, I don't want to kill you. I was like, wait, what are you? She's like, Sheriff. I was like, oh, I'm Vigi. Hold my wing. We went looking for people.
Yeah, then we're on the way to find snails.
I said no. I just want to add.
Targeting?
Wait a minute.
Let's go, Rhino. Let's go.
Zara.
Oh, Mia, where are you?
Nah, she's not here no more.
Damn. It says in lobby.
Well, that's Sutra.
Nails.
Knuckles, I added them and it said they're in the lobby.
Not in this lobby, mate.
Our lobby. Is there a hidden name? Oh, Mia.
Knuckles. Hello.
Wait. No. 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 Zara.
Response.
Goodbye, Zara.
Are we playing?
Still here.
No. Hey, no. No.
Marabobara.
No.
What? What happened?
Still missing the daddy.
Your name in
Goodbye,
my
no.
language. It Marabobara.
What up, Vice? Vice?
Marabobara.
Hello.
I'm 30 if you ask the age.
Hello.
Oh, you're 30.
Do you know what? Do you know how? Do you know how to say your mother has a wretched cunt in English?
I'm sorry?
Your mother has a wretched cunt.
Uncle, stop flirting me in DMs, bro.
Your mother has cum in her belly button.
Oh, word. It's like yogurt.
Gloopy.
I'd say that's a very southern English thing.
Yes. Perish.
Did you drink tea today?
I did not drink tea today. Pepsi Max and Monster only because I'm a degenerate.
And what is in your hands? What is in your
One
hands?
question. Who is my lover?
He's the bloody tea. What happened to your boy?
A bottle of water?
No.
Why does everyone have such ass microphones? A headset is literally £30. Joel, can you tell me? Can you tell me why? Tell me why. Ain't nothing but a mistake. Tell me why. I'm bird watching everyone, yeah.
Wait, what kind of tea?
Oh,
Run, I would track you.
The bloody tea.
Oh, Ren, you'll track me?
it's my tea.
How the fuck stalker works? This roll sucks, bitch.
You just follow people around so you can tell people if they've been eaten because you can follow the belly.
Alright, fucker, keep running. I don't
Okay.
see shit.
Okay. You see an arrow? I'm bird watcher, Chloe. I'm watching you right now.
I don't really like my role.
Okay.
My row.
Oh!
What the fuck? Wait. Guys, what happened?
Thank God I was with
I
Marble
I
Bottom.
cha- I chance. What happened?
So I just walked up. I walked up on Justala.
Where did you find the body?
I just walked up on Justala and Vice with two bodies.
I'm just
In curiosities.
Please tell me.
Curiosities.
What happened?
I'm the bird watcher, so I saw everything.
2 people killed at once. In what
Ew,
case is
why would
that?
you pick the role bird watcher?
So I could see these kills, obviously.
So you be judging people picking roles.
I know, she's fucking judgy. So I would go Justala unless it's lovers that have just died and he's innocent. So I would say Justala and Vice.
I was caught. I'm gonna be honest. I got caught. It was I was caught red-handed.
Is there Dodo?
I literally there was two.
I don't think so. Oh, there's dueling dodos, but
Did we just split that? Right. Sheriff or Vigi, please get Vice now. Please. Oh no.
Wait, I admitted to it.
Oh no.
Wait,
I hope you die. I hope you get shanked. I'm out of here. Yeah, I want you to die. Hey, Michael. Hey, Nightcrawler. Oh.
Hi, Buck.
I said it was him. And no one went to kill him.
I was in the hallway, then I saw Vice killing him. That's it.
You saw Vice.
It's your
The body was found in the hallway. I saw Vice running
Vice,
out of the crime.
Any defense? I thought you guys were voting me out the first time around. I was stuck between two bodies.
I swear to God, I didn't.
Oh,
But
he's a
now
Dodo!
I'm 100% sure. I
Maybe
saw
he
you.
is.
You can't defend yourself now.
Is there a Dodo on the thing?
I was caught between two bodies the first time around. I admitted that I killed.
Oh, so why did you kill it?
I said I killed.
What reason? Why did you kill it?
What reason? I don't know. There was no reason. Should I have to have a reason to kill?
You have to. Okay, then kick him out. Kick him out. He's out.
All right, Dodo. GG. Fuck it. I quit.
I don't know about this one.
Like, why are we arguing
brother.
it?
You got it.
What?
You got it, brother.
I got one vote. Why?
To be cute.
Because why not?
Say goodbye.
Yeah, GG, Dodo. Good job. Good job, Dodo.
No, it was me. I was the dodo.
Well, I told you I did. I admitted the same.
I saw them both.
Like, oh, dang, I got caught.
Yeah, I saw them both, and I told you all who it was. You fucking... I would have gone mad. I would have gone mad if you did vote him out.
Buckles got what they deserve because he said he hoped I get shanked.
Hey, nails.
Yeah.
Vice kill me. Vice kill me.
Oh yeah, we voted him out. We avenged you, brother. Yes, we did.
No, you're gonna kill them.
I am? Oh, okay.
Asher.
Yeah.
Asher.
Hi, what's up? I'm Asher. Oh, hi, Asher.
Oh, you sound my... Hey, Cottom.
I don't need my shit, nigga.
Cottom. Whoa. Whoa.
What the frick?
Hey, Kit. Kit.
Whoa.
Kit Kat.
Hello.
How's hi? How you doing, girl?
Wait, did Kit speak?
Yeah, wrong
I spoke right now, brother.
Huh?
Hi, peepees.
Goodbye, peepees.
Now, in the real life, I'm pigeon.
In a real life, you're a pigeon.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
are you
This
French too?
this is my last game because this game is ass.
This
Wow.
game is the greatest game of all time.
no way. Everybody is gonna leave
You
or
all your games. You just
I was thinking about last game as well.
Yeah, me too.
okay.
Don't jump on my bandwagon, Meg. Let me have it by myself.
I have, yeah, nothing really, but
Can
yeah.
we make contact because in Discord because I like to play with.
No.
Snow's a single.
No is crazy. He just said no to that poor guy.
Okay.
Me and you are together. What do you mean? Fuck.
I mean,
Sweet, sweet.
I'm gonna put it to a vote. I could invite him, girls.
What?
I'm not against it. I
Okay.
don't mind too. I'm not against it. He seems sweet.
It just sounds like a no.
Who just forced me on this
It
roll?
sounds like a no.
Oh my god.
I'm just setting my watch. For some reason. Do the date. I've got to wind it all the way.
That was so. I was literally just chilling with my set and I moved to the and I saw.
Oh, old Mara's back.
You're lagging.
She was just alive. Oh.
Yo, Jellyfish is hacking her. She's tapping.
So what did you say? I'm sorry you were lagging.
Jellyfish was dead in laboratory.
In lavatory.
So,
Nails no vote. You just.
I don't think if you think what I think, but it's between two persons.
No, it's not.
I was setting my watch the entire time, and my role is censor.
I'm hiding in the bell.
Nails. My
Nails,
God.
where are you?
I would get voted regardless if I'm good or bad, so I don't give a fuck.
Oh.
It really don't
I
matter.
wasn't planning on it, but now that you say that, maybe.
Bitch, you already know you were gonna vote me.
You were going to vote me?
I wasn't not.
That's a lie. That's a.
Now I am. He said something.
You always were. You're a liar. You know.
You were
Yo,
about
the
to
sniper
vote
class
me?
is really cool. I like that class.
Yeah.
Yo, the sniper class. I thought it was an assassin.
No. It is.
It's funny running away from it.
No, so but I was in the corner and just spin it across the map and shit. It was pretty fucking cool.
So I don't know whether to invite
Yeah,
Nightcrawler and
all
Diego.
I know is I know why I don't play this game.
Yeah. Should I invite Nightcrawler and Diego? I don't know. I don't think so, but
Nightcrawler's cool.
No.
I love.
yeah, they seem okay.
What I do? Think what I do? Yours?
Nightcrawler, we're all in the same server. What the fuck, Diva?
Bro, what? I'm gonna go. I didn't hear that. What was that?
We're all in the same server. We're all friends.
Oh,
What the
fucking
fuck,
Oh my
Diva?
god, my ears. You suck.
If you join, you'll rarely ever see me. I appear like once 2 years. Once every 2 years.
Yeah, that's fair. We don't play that often anymore. We're trying to play weekly, but it's tough.
Yeah, we all have different like
This
time
person
zones.
worships the devil. Don't talk to her, really. She's.
I'm like a
They're
ghost.
sucking bitch.
Yeah, this one sacrifices animals right here.
Wow.
What?
And this is baguettes for life. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah, be careful with her. This one right here. This one.
Oh, I just came back. Yeah, you're French, right?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, we're
Are
friends.
you in the countryside? I like the countryside more.
I am from the south of France.
Ooh, very very cool, very cool, very cool.
Yeah,
You're
by
not
the
French.
Mediterranean
You're French.
Sea and all.
You're
That's
French.
my. Yeah. Hmm?
This one. Are you French? Or are you?
Me?
I'm confused. Yes.
No.
No. My husband is though.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh my god.
he was just in Paris for like a machine mathematics learning conference. That's why I was there.
Yay! And he speaks French, though. Yeah.
Yes, he's his like whole family is
I
from
have an
France.
important question though. Is your husband single?
What? I didn't hear. I'm sorry. It's like you got really quiet.
Oh, is your husband single?
Single. Is your husband
Single?
single?
Oh.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure about. Yeah.
Oh, Buck, I'm sorry.
You fuck.
I appreciate you asking though before.
Buckles, I'm sorry. Buckles too shy to ask.
You fucking piece of shit.
Sorry, Buckles.
But yeah, is he born in France or?
Yeah, no, he's from like he's not even from Paris. He's from like a Levois something. I don't know. I could go get his passport. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us his number. Tell us his number.
Wait. Are you from America?
I'm from America. Yeah.
Oh, so how much did he cost to ship him?
Oh no, he was interning at State Farm. No. Allstate.
Allstate.
And that's why he was in my city, and I met him on a dating app, and now we're
Aw,
together for like 8 years now.
that's cute. I like that.
Yeah,
I like.
because I have like friend conversation with his husband.
I don't want to come to America ever. I don't
Oh,
ever
it's
want to go there.
scary.
I don't. Britain's
I
bad.
can't lie. Life isn't the best.
Yeah. Britain's bad, but I don't want to go to America either. It's just Britain with guns.
Fuck you all, you cunt.
Wow.
Look, yeah. Fuck the British though. I'm sorry. I don't want to go there either. Your guys' food looks awful.
Yeah, fuck the British.
Oh really? The food? You don't even know what British food is.
The food looks like you guys are still eating like there's a freaking war going on.
Name one British dish.
Like there's like
Name one British dish.
going over the country. What is that? Salmon hash or something? Blood sausage?
They're
Jelly
not. They're not inherently British, and they're not staples.
Lucie.
I know.
C'est un serveur anglais. Parle qu'anglais ici.
Yo.
Il y a quelqu'un qui parle français.
As anyone American, you cannot shit on anyone else's food. Your food is 90% chemicals.
I can see that's very fair. I can't lie with that.
Ah, we. Damn it!
It looks good.
I didn't get to put time to sound.
She was like, oh, do you speak French? I was like, no, you need to like add the option.
She was about to get putain de salsanged.
Ow! She was a child.
Right. Have fun, little beans. I am now going.
Alright, I'm out of here. Goodbye, daddy.
Ta-ta! Thank you for the games.
Guys, right?
I am ending stream.